Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm, and you were watching first part of what if Naruto was born in Earthland and was raised by a goddess. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Magic, Maho, is the spirit's material manifestation. An organism's physical spirit can create magic as a result of connecting with nature's spiritual flow. These magic particles are also known as Eternano. The fact that only 10% of people on the planet are capable of using magic is known to maintain a balance between common people and those who possess it. Those who possess the ability to use magic are known as mages, Madoshi, or wizards. Magic requires a great deal of mental focus and ability. Mages live all over the Earthland, Asu Rondo, world, and they band together to create what are called guilds, Gerudo. Learn more about magic, form bonds of friendship, and work to make ends meet. These tasks can be as easy as delivering a package or as difficult as taking down enormous monsters. There are guilds all over Earthland, but the Kingdom of Fury, Fury Okoku, a permanently neutral nation with a population of 17 million, has the highest concentration of magic guilds. There are many well-known guilds there, but one in particular has created numerous legends and will continue to do so for years to come. Fairy Tale, Firi Tiru, is the name of this guild. 4 individuals, 3 young men and 1 teenage girl, founded it in X686. The 3 men, Purhito Gablog, Warod Sequin, and Yuri Drayar, were treasure seekers before they met Fairy Tale's 4th founder. That same year, the first master of Fairy Tale was a teenage girl named Mavis Vermilion. 13-year-old Mavis Vermilion had spent her childhood on Tenro Island largely alone. She had a childlike build, big green eyes without irises, and long, wavy blonde hair that reached her feet, with one lock pointing straight up. She wore a pink layered robe that was frilly and had a red ribbon around her neck tied in a bow. There were 2 blue triangles above and 3 blue diamond patterns surrounding the chest area. Hot pink was used to outline each of these series. She wore tiny hoop earrings and wing-like decorations around her ears. She also appeared to favor going barefoot. After just 10 years as guild master, Mavis died of a heart condition at the age of 23, never having been able to realize her dream of meeting fairies. She did, however, supervise the development of 3 amazing spells during her tenure as the first master of Fairy Tale: Fairy Law, Fairy Ro, Fairy Glitter, Fairy Garita, Fairy Sphere, Fairy Sufia, and the 3 legendary fairy magics, Yosei Maho. Before she died, she gave her friend and fellow founder Purhito Gablog the title of master, making him the 2nd master of Fairy Tale. Tenro Island was designated as the guild's holy ground after she was buried there. Purhito was an average-height young man with slicked-back brown hair. He wore combat boots, black pants, a high-colored black jacket with enormous shoulder pads with blue and green accents, and a blue and green cape. He used to be able to see with both eyes, but following an encounter with the Dark Guild that initially controlled Magnolia, he lost his right eye and started wearing an eye patch over it. He was tall in his later years, with long, silver-white hair that was still slicked back. He wore a light cape with Fairy Tale's mark on the back, a dark fur-lined mantle, and what appeared to be a loose robe underneath. He also developed a long white beard and carried a long staff with the top shaped once more like the symbol of Fairy Tale. For at least 30 years, Purhito was the Fairy Tale master. He was in charge of the guild's initial growth in membership and popularity. He gave the reins to Makarov, a 40-year-old man, when he was ready to retire. Warod Sequin was a tall, well-built man with a tangle of untidy black hair on top of his somewhat rectangular head. Warod wore combat boots, pants, a belt, and a sleeveless shirt with green accents. Warod employed a unique form of magic known as green magic, Midori no Maho. What became of Warod in his later years is little known. What is known, though, is that he joined the 10 Wizard Saints, a group of 10 of Fiore's most formidable mages. Yuri Drayar was a tall man with dark eyes and spiky blonde hair who was in his late teens or early 20s. He was wearing combat boots, long pants, a jacket, and a dark-colored shirt. Most notably, Yuri is the father of Makarov Drayar, the 3rd master of Fairy Tale. He vanished when his son turned 18, and nobody is aware of his present location or situation. Yuri Drayar and his spouse welcomed Makarov Drayar, the 3rd master of Fairy Tale, into the world in X696. When Makarov was younger, he was shorter than average in height and had his father's spiky blonde hair. Though his own stood straight up as a young man, he had an impatient attitude and was not afraid to pick fights with his fellow guild members. At the age of 20, Makarov was promoted to the guild's highest class of mage. The S-class is special magic, known as Titan magic. Giayanto Maho gave him the moniker, the Titan, and enabled him to grow to enormous proportions. Makarov was a member of Team Makarov, which consisted of 6 players, including himself. He was close to all of the players, particularly Porlyuzica, the team's lone female player, who was 15 years his junior. In X736, Makarov, then 40 years old, was promoted to third master of Fairy Tail by Purhito. He was listed as one of the 10 wizard saints. Satan Daimado. In X741, Makarov himself had 2 sons and 2 wives. The first, named Ivan, was born to Makarov and his wife. He had black hair from birth. In contrast to the rest of his family, Ivan developed into a strong individual, but he was always more sinister than the other members of his family. Ivan was 2 years old when Makarov's wife passed away. Makarov and poor Lyuzica, who had been there to console the guild master after his wife passed away, became even closer after the birth of the second child. The boy's name was Minato, and like his father, he had spiky blonde hair from the Dreyar family. Some would argue that Minato's own power surpassed that of his father and brother. At roughly 6 feet 5 inches and 250 pounds, Ivan Dreyar is a tall and powerful man like the rest of his family. He has short, black hair that is spiky only on top of his head. He doesn't look like his brother or father at all. Ivan's main tool is Shikigami magic, Shikigami Maho, which allows him to transform objects into paper dolls. Laxus, the son of Ivan and his wife in X761, was born with the spiky blonde hair and other characteristics of the Dreyar family. Despite being shorter than his brother, Minato Dreyar is tall, standing 6 feet 1 inch and weighing 165 pounds. He has a lean, athletic build that is geared more towards speed. He has spiky blonde hair with 2 jaw-length bangs framing his face, just like every other male in his family except his brother. His mother claims that the bright blue eyes he has, in contrast to the rest of his family, are a result of a recessive gene she inherited from her own father. At 16, Minato was guided by his father to become an S-class mage. He was the youngest S-class member ever at the time. The spell that gave Minato the nickname, Fairy Tail's Yellow Flash, is called Hiraishin, Flying Thunder God, and it was a combination of teleportation magic, Shunken no Maho, and seal magic, Shiru Maho. It was so quick that before someone was defeated, all they could see was a flash of yellow light. In addition, he is renowned for his proficiency with fire, Hai no Maho, earth, Suchi Maho, and water magic, Mizuke Kakushu Maho, as well as his use of wind, Kei's Maho, and lightning magic, Kaminari Kei Kakushu Maho. Additionally, he developed a spell known as Energy Make Magic, Enerugi Maiku Maho, which enabled him to transform pure Eternino into any shape he desired. Minato met and fell in love with Kushina Uzumaki, the woman who would later become his wife, when he was just 13 years old. After her home on the island nation of Land of Whirlpools was destroyed and her friends and family were all killed, Kushina Uzumaki joined Fairy Tail at the age of 13. She loudly declared when she first met her guildmates that she would be the second female master after Mavis and the fourth master of Fairy Tail. Most people laughed at this, but Minato grinned and told her that his dream was to succeed his father and become the fourth master. Kushina became more and more attractive as she matured as an adult. Kushina is a 5 feet 4 inches woman with a slender yet feminine figure, fair skin, violet eyes, and fiery red hair that falls down to her shapely ass. She has 2 strands of hair that frame each side of her face, and she wears a black hair clip in her hair, parting it on the left to keep it out of her eyes. Due to her temper, Kushina earned S-class at the age of 19 and was dubbed the Red Hot-Blooded Habanero. In the guild, however, she gained the nickname Fairy Tail's Queen of Blades, around Fury because she used Blades magic, Yeba Maho, a unique form of re-equip magic, Konso Maho, that only allowed her to summon various types of swords. She was also somewhat skilled in water magic and wind magic, and a master of seal magic, chain magic, Rensa Maho, and rune magic, Rune Maho. After he saved her after one of the members knocked her unconscious during a mission to dismantle a dark guild and she was abducted to be sold as a sex slave, Minato and Kushina eventually started dating when they were 17. Following her red hair, Minato tracked her down, vanquished the kidnapper, and returned her to the guild in his arms. She fell in love with the master's second child at the same time. He claimed to have discovered her by the trail her hair left behind, which he saw immediately because he had always thought her red hair was lovely. Makarov was proud when both Minato and Kushina were named to the 10 wizard saints at the age of 21. However, he was even more proud when they got married a year later and the young redhead became his real daughter. When Kushina became pregnant with their first child at age 23, Minato and Kushina left the guild and took a leave of absence from the wizard saints. This occurred approximately a year after Ivan's son Laxus was born. The entire guild congratulated the young couple, and Makarov was ecstatic to be becoming a grandfather once more. Nevertheless, Ivan was the only guild member who did not share the enthusiasm of the others. Ivan believed that his sister-in-law's pregnancy and his younger brother's impending fatherhood were just 2 more opportunities for the brat to show up. Ivan harbored a deep-seated animosity toward his younger brother due to all of his achievements and accolades, which he believed were rightfully his as the older brother. Thus, Ivan sat back and planned how he would one day exact revenge on Minato through their children. So, Minato and Kushina relocated to a town called Konoha, which is situated on the boundary between Fury and the Bosco woodland country. There were only about 2,000 people living in the tiny town of Konoha, and about 300 of them were mages. Hiruzen Sarutobi, a former wizard saint known as the Professor, due to his vast knowledge of magic, is the leader of Konoha and a close friend of Makarov, who extended a warm welcome to the young couple. At the age of 68, Hiruzen Sarutobi was an elderly man who was 2 years older than Makarov. He was shorter than Makarov, but still over 5 feet tall, with spiky white hair that had once been brown, and a gray beard. He was well known for training Jiraiya Yagami, Tsunade Senju, and Orochimaru Habi, 3 of the greatest mages still alive, even though he was also a formidable mage and a former wizard saint. A man in his early 40s, Jiraiya Yagami has long, white, spiky hair that is pulled back into a ponytail that reaches his thighs. At 6 feet 4, he weighs 240 pounds and has a good amount of muscle. The title, the Toad Sage, belongs to Jiraiya, who is a master of seal, fire, earth, Ikriture, Ekaridiuru, Rune Maho, and Toad Magic, Hikigairu Maho. Jiraiya is the spy master and author of the Rune Knight's spy unit. In addition to being a huge pervert, he almost lost his balls when he made a lewd remark about Kushina's breasts when they first met. With long blonde hair pulled back into 2 loose ponytails, Tsunade Senju is a fair-skinned woman in her early 40s who appears to be in her 20s. She is considered one of the most beautiful women in all of Earthland because she is 5 feet 3 inches and has enormous breasts. Additionally, she is the granddaughter of Hashirama Senju, one of the mages who established Konoha and who was reputed to be divine himself. Tsunade is regarded as the world's greatest doctor, due to her healing magic, Shiyu Maho, and the legendary sucker, due to her gambling tendencies. She is a master of healing and slug magic, Namakuji Maho, and an expert in fire, earth, lightning, and water magics. She has such extraordinary healing abilities that she can treat wounds that most other medical professionals would consider incurable. She used to lead the Rune Knight's medical unit, but she resigned after her lover Dan Kato passed away, which she was unable to stop. She now travels the world with her apprentice and Dan's niece, Shizune Kato. Orochimaru Habi is a 40-year-old man with pale skin, long, straight black hair, slitted golden eyes with purple markings around the sockets, and elongated teeth that give him a snake-like appearance. He weighs 145 pounds and is only 5 feet 8 inches tall, which is average. He is referred to as the mad scientist, due to his insatiable curiosity about all spells and his unethical experiments while he was a rune knight. Orochimaru is a master of seal and rune magics, proficient in all elemental magics, Saire Maho, and recognized for having invented curse seal magic, Noroishiru Maho. In addition, he is a master of Habi no Maho, or snake magic. Once the head of the Bureau of Magical Development, he was driven out by the Rune Knights and replaced by a man named Brain after he was discovered conducting unethical experiments on children and young adults in an attempt to achieve immortality. No one has been able to confirm the rumors that he became a dark mage, Yami Madoshi, and established the new dark guild, Yami Gerudo, called Hidden Sound, Otobikure. The leaders of 4 branches of the Rune Knights, Shikaku Nara, head of the intelligence unit, Inoichi Yamanaka, head of the interrogation unit, Shoza Akamichi, head of the combat unit, and Hiyashi Hyuga, head of the tracking unit, as well as their spouses, were among the many friends the Dryers made while living in peace in Konoha. Additionally, Minato took on 3 teenagers as pseudo-students during Kushina's pregnancy, giving them advice on their individual magics and teaching them how to better use their magic power. These 3 were Obito Uchiha, an outcast of Konoha's Uchiha clan, Rin Nohara, a member of an offshoot of the Inuzuka clan of Konoha, and Kakashi Hitaki, the son of the notorious former wizard saint, the White Fang, Tsukumo Hitaki. Because Kakashi was an expert in lightning magic, one of the blonde's specialties, he was the one who was closest to Minato out of the 3 since his mother passed away at birth and his father killed himself when he was 5 years old. The boy adopted the Dryers as parents and viewed them as the mother and father he never had. Then, on October 10, X763, Kushina went into labor. It took 6 hours, but after much pushing, screaming, and Minato's handbraking, they eventually had a son. The baby was born with his father's bright blue eyes and a full head of Drayar blonde hair, though not yet spiky. However, the child's most distinctive feature was the 3 whisker-like birthmarks on each cheek, which his mother thought made him look even cuter. When Minato called his father the day after the baby was born to inform him that he had another grandson, the old man was overjoyed. When he inquired about the boy's name, Minato informed him that they had given him the name Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki Drayar. The old man told his son that Naruto was a strong name and that he was certain he would be a powerful mage in the future. He also mentioned that he would be in Konoha in a few days. The old man knew immediately that they had given him the maelstrom meaning of the name. A few days later, Makarov kept his word, but since Ivan was away on an S-class job, he brought along 2-year-old Laxus. Upon seeing his baby cousin for the first time, the blonde instantly warmed Minato and Makarov's hearts and gave them hope that the two cousins would be closer than Minato and Ivan were. During his entire stay in Konoha, Makarov indulged his new grandson and spent time with Sarutobi drinking and reminiscing about the past. Everyone was happy when the man and Laxus eventually departed, and Minato promised to stay in touch with Kushina and return to the guild 2 weeks after Naruto's first birthday. Everything was wonderful during that first year, and Naruto even made friends with the newborn children of the civilian Haruno family as well as the Yamanaka, Akamichi, and Nara families. Naruto's fathers, students, old man Sarutobi and his 2 boys, his occasionally babysitter Kurenai Yuhi, his grandfather Makarov and his 3-year-old cousin Laxus, and most importantly, his young friends his age, were all present at his enormous birthday celebration. The heir to the Nara clan is Shikamaru Nara, the son of Shikaku and Yoshino Nara, who was equally lazy and looked a lot like his own father. Like the majority of the men in his family, he wears his black hair in a small, high, spiky ponytail. There are 2 things that the Nara clan is well known for in Earthland. The first is that each member is a genius, which makes them ideal for leading the Rune Knights Intelligence Division. The second is their special form of shadow magic, Kage Maho, which enables them to bind and connect their own shadows to those of others, making the other person mimic every move the Nara makes. Ino Yamanaka, the heiress of the Yamanaka clan and daughter of Inoichi and his wife, shares her father's platinum blonde hair and blue-green eyes for the past 3 generations. The Yamanaka clan has led the Rune Knights Interrogation Unit. Their distinct brand of mind magic, Kokura no Maho, is the cause of this. The heir to the Akamichi clan is Choji Akamichi, the pudgy baby son of Choza and Shizoru. He has spiky brown hair for 2 reasons. The Akamichi clan has led the Rune Knights Combat Division for 3 generations. The first is their superior physical strength and durability, which are attributed to their bulk. Most Akamichi men can grow up to 6 feet 10 and weigh up to 500 pounds. The second is their special brand of Titan magic, which enables them to enlarge specific body parts rather than the entire body. Last but not least, Sakura Haruno is the daughter of Kazashi and Mebuki Haruno, who run a clothes store. She got her mother's jade green eyes and her father's pink hair. The Haruno family has prospered from their clothing store in Konoha. Sume, the younger brother of the clan's heiress Hana, and Kiba Inuzuka, the second and youngest child of the Inuzuka clan's matriarch. His brown eyes and wild, spiky hair give him a somewhat feral appearance because the Inuzuka clan uses a particular kind of animal magic, Animaru Maho, called dog magic, Inu no Maho, which involves dogs. The Aburame clan's heir is Shino Aburame, son of Shibi Aburame, and his wife. Shino's eyes are dark and her hair is bushy and dark brown. Insect magic, Mushi no Maho, a unique kind of animal magic, is also reportedly used by his family. Heiress to the Hyuga clan, Hinata Hyuga is the sole daughter of Hiyashi and Hitome Hyuga. Hinata has pale skin, short dark blue hair that she inherited from her mother, and her clan's white eyes with a hint of lavender. In addition to their unique brand of eye magic, Mi Maho, known as White Eye, Byakugan, which gives them a 360-degree field of vision and the ability to see people's magic systems, the Hyuga are also known for their palm magic, Pamu Maho, which they use in conjunction with their special hand to have a style called Gentle Fist. The bulging of the veins surrounding the Hyuga's eyes indicates that their eye magic is activated. Last but not least is Sasuke Uchiha, the younger brother of the clan's heir, Itachi Uchiha, and the second son of Fugaku and Makoto Uchiha. The clan's leader Sasuke is a baby with black eyes and chin-length black hair that resembles a duck's ass and is spiky in the back. The Uchiha clan is also renowned for their proficiency with fire magic and their own special eye magic, known as Copy Wheel Eye, Sharingan, which is indicated by the pupil turning red and having any number of black text markings from 1 to 3 surrounding it. With Naruto receiving numerous gifts and the kids playing together and getting dirty like kids do, the party was a huge success. When it was all over, Makarov and Laxus went back to Magnolia, and the old man said he looked forward to seeing them in 2 weeks. Everyone else then went back to their houses in the village, but nobody anticipated that tragedy would strike and that the world would lose 2 great mages for almost a decade. For 13 years, their son would disappear. Bosco and Fiore's Boundary. The Konoha Nighttime, October 13, X 764. In Konoha, the night is as quiet as any other typical night. The weather is pleasant, and people are going about their nightly activities as usual, with the majority closing their businesses to spend the evening at home. The Dreyar family is among the families enjoying dinner and getting ready for a peaceful and quiet evening, but that tranquility won't last because Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar's fate, as well as the fates of everyone else in Konoha, will be altered tonight. Near 11 p.m., Hiruzen Sarutobi is sitting motionless in his office, finishing up the paperwork related to his position as Konoha's leader. He frowns as he looks out the window to his office. He has been feeling uneasy for a while, but he can't for the life of him figure out why his apprehension is confirmed as he completes the final piece of paperwork for the evening when he and the rest of the town are suddenly struck by an incredibly loud roar coming from the sky. In an attempt to locate the source of the roar, Hiruzen dashes from his office to the roof. As he looks up at the night sky, he notices it a legendary creature, a dragon, is swiftly descending towards Konoha in the air. From what he can see in the darkness and how far away it is from the town, the large beast appears to be covered in lightning and has a yellow color. The elderly man suddenly becomes active and uses his magic to summon all of the town's available mage as Hiruzen says to them, "Listen up everyone, tonight may very well be the last night Konoha has, but I do not want you to despair. We shall fight to the dying breath to ensure the innocent get to safety." They all have grim but determined expressions on their faces. "The rest of you are with me, and we'll show this beast why you don't mess with Konoha now. All of you mages, ages 13 to 20, gather up the civilians and get them to safety. Please don't return here to fight the beast under any circumstances. Clan leaders, take care of your families. That is more important than fighting a monster." They all roar in agreement as they split up into 3 groups, one of which is to collect the civilians, who are young mages like Rin, Kakashi, and Obito. A second group consists of clan leaders who go to their houses to collect their spouses and kids. The final group launches themselves from the top of Hiruzen's office in the direction of the dragon, which has just landed in the town center, smashing numerous houses and businesses in the process. After gathering his magic, Sarutobi slams his right hand on the ground and exclaims, "Monkey magic! Monkey King! Enma! Saru no Maho! Enku! Enma!" A dark green magic seal then emerges, revealing an elderly monkey with white fur covering his body and tail that protrudes from his sleeves and pants. He has a goatee, long sideburns, and long, disheveled white hair that reaches his back. He is dressed in a black suit with mesh armor underneath, which is covered by a red sash, holding a sleeveless kimono shirt with white fur trims and tiger-striped markings. Enma is being summoned by the king of monkeys. "Let me guess, Konoha is under attack by that dragon, and like an old fool you're going to meet it head on. I take it you summoned me to fight alongside you?" Sarutobi nods as he continues, "Fine. Then if we die at least we die together." Transformation magic. Adamantine staff. Henshin Maho. Kongo Nyoi. As a glowing yellow magic circle appears beneath him suddenly, the Monkey King transforms into a large, long black bow staff with diamond hardness. Before joining the other fighters and getting beaten back by the dragon, Hiruzen grabs hold of his transformed partner. When he approaches the massive beast, he pushes the staff forward, causing it to extend, and strikes it squarely in the chest, denting its scales there and pushing it back until it is no longer inside Konoha's walls. He quickly rushes outside the walls to resume the fight after bringing the staff back to normal length, with others trailing behind him. The dragon, on the other hand, is shocked that a human weapon could hurt him and even push him back because no weapon made by humans should be able to do that. Additionally, he sensed life and magic from the staff, which he immediately interprets as indicating that the weapon must be one of those vile summon animals. This infuriates him even more because he is the legendary Bronton the Thunder Dragon, Sonda Ryu. And a pseudo-demon who degrades himself to work with dirty humans will not make him look foolish. He lets out another powerful roar as he gets ready to murder and devour every human that approaches him. When Hiruzen is leading his troops against the enormous dragon, he is unable to avoid thinking, if only Jiraiya and Tsunade were here, then we might actually have a decent chance of beating the beast. Jiraiya's collaborations with his toads as well as the acid of Tsunade's slugs would cause serious damage to it, and may even cause it to retreat. Alas, Jiraiya is off spying on dark guilds and other countries, and Tsunade is Ishval knows where, probably some casino gambling her family's fortune away. When he sees the dragon open its maw and blue lightning begin to gather in its mouth, he stops worrying about the possible outcomes and quickly yells, "Breath attack! Scatter!" He gives the order without hesitation because Bronton releases his Thunder Dragon's roar, Sonda Ryu no Hoko. As soon as the attack team scatters to the winds, launching a massive, wide beam of blue lightning that obliterates everything in its path, including a portion of the mountain behind the town that bears the carvings of the faces of all of Konoha's leaders. All of the mages are shocked and in disbelief at the devastation that one attack has caused. But Hiruzen Sarutobi reacts completely differently. The elderly village chief is furious after witnessing the harm done to his childhood home, where he learned to be a mage at the hands of Hashirama Senju, also referred to as the god of wizards, and his brother Tobarama Senju. The sheer power of the professor's magic suddenly brings all the local mages to their knees. With a speed that is inappropriate for a man his age, the elderly man dashes toward Bronton, his magical aura erupting from his body in waves of green, his strength sufficient to even attract the dragon's attention. Before he elongates and slightly enlarges the adamantine staff and brings it down with a loud crack directly on Bronton's scaled head, he raises it high into the air. The diamond-hard weapon has sufficient strength and force to knock the great beast flat on his face and break the scales on his head, causing blood to flow. Unbelieving that the elderly human was able to bring him down and draw blood, Bronton lets out a small moan of pain, but as soon as he gets back to his full height, that quickly becomes anger. Filthy human! How dare you draw the blood of the great Bronton? I'm going to eat you whole and then destroy your precious town. Roarrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr seal, which causes a brown magic seal to appear on the ground between him and Bronten. Earth Magic. Earth Flow River. Suchi Maho. Doryu Taiga. As the dragon loses his balance as the ground turns into a mud river that slides beneath his feet as the mud rises and takes the form of a dragon's head, Sarutobi switches the seal his hand is in and another brown magic seal materializes in front of the elderly man. Earth Magic. Earth Dragon Bullet. Suchi Maho. Doryuden. Large, hard spheres of mud shoot out of the mud dragon's maw. The old man changes his hand seal once more before they arrive at Bronten, and a red magic circle appears as he inhales and exhales a red-hot flame. Fire Magic. Fire Dragon Bullet. Hai no Maho. Karyuden. Lighting the mud bullets on fire and transforming them into magma bullets, the old man concludes by saying, Collaboration Magic. Lava Dragon Bullets. Koroborshan Maho. Yogenryuden. Many of Bronten's scales were melted by the liquid hot rock projectiles that struck him along his left side, causing superficial burns to the skin beneath. But as he turns and swipes at Sarutobi with his right hand, the dragon's healing factor swiftly resolves the issue, and the scales mend themselves. The elderly man is able to move aside, but a piece of the dragon's claws nicked his left side. When Hiruzen lands, he yells in pain and quickly grabs his side, causing Enma's mouth and eye to appear on the staff. Hiruzen, are you injured? Sarutobi asks, nodding his head. How bad is it? Sarutobi takes his hand from his side, looks down to see it completely covered in blood, and winces. It looks pretty bad, old friend, but I can still fight. The other mages, encouraged by his success, had started attacking the great beast, but they were unable to harm Bronten no matter what spells they used, so he was quickly brought back to the issue at hand. The dragon is crushing them like insects and swatting them around for their troubles. Before he can do anything, he sees a flash of yellow and hears the shout, Energy Make. Big Ball Rasengan. Enerugi Maiku. Odama Rasengan. As a big ball of swirling blue magic energy collides with Bronten's chest, causing him to skid back 30 feet and leave a bruise that resembles a swirl. At that moment, he sees Minato Drayar and Kushina Uzumaki Drayar standing in front of him, with their 1-year-old son in Kushina's arms. Sarutobi-sama, leave this to us. We have only one request of you. Take our son to safety. We've contacted my father and he will meet you in the nearest town in Fury to hear. The blond man turns to the elder mage with a serious expression that reminds him of his father before the younger man addresses him Kushina, then hands the blonde baby to him. After being startled by these acts, the elderly man quickly regains his composure and attempts to return the child to the redhead. You cannot be serious, Minato. Kushina. Please take Naruto back, and the three of you get to safety. I'm old, and have lived a long and fruitful life. Besides, I'm going to die anyway. My injury is mortal. Take Naruto and go to Fairy Tail. I will hold back the beast with what strength I have left. When Kushina puts her hand on the elderly man's left side, it glows green and he feels his wounds slightly stitched together before the light goes out. Kushina shakes her head at this. I only learned a few things from Mother, poor Lyuzuka, and was never very good at healing, so that's all I can do to help you. Old man, any hard movement will cause it to open again. If we flee now, when the people we've become close to over the past 3 years need us the most, we won't be able to introduce ourselves to Fairy Tail or claim to be wizard saints, so we need you to take Naruto and leave. Unconsciously holding Naruto close to him, Hiruzen is shocked by the passion in Kushina's eyes. At that statement, all of their focus returns to the dragon after a loud roar, and Minato glances at his wife, who immediately understands what he's saying without using words. As a glowing golden seal emerges beneath Bronten, she moves forward and holds out her right hand. She chants, Chain Magic. Holy chains. Rensa Maho. Hori Chen. As several golden chains emerge from the seal, encircle the dragon, and then tighten and push him to the ground. Minato turns to face the elderly man and his son, who is kissing the baby's head after rubbing the child's cheek with his finger. I have no doubt that your grandfather will raise you to the best of his abilities and that you will grow up strong. I hope that one day you will be able to forgive us for not being there for you, Naruto. As you develop as a mage, you will be frequently compared to your mother and me, but don't let that depress you. Instead, use it as inspiration to grow stronger and demonstrate that you are Naruto Uzumaki Draar and your own man. Just as I did to escape the shadow of my own father Sarutobi-sama. Please take good care of my boy and make sure he gets to my father's hands safely. The blonde uses Hiraishin to flash in front of Bronten and summons a dull green magic seal, sending out a blast of wind magic that cuts into the beast's face as it continues to try to break the chains. The old man nods at this as the reed head returns. Like her husband, Kushina brushes aside the hair on Naruto's forehead while kissing his whiskered cheeks and giving him a motherly smile. You'll never understand how much your father and I love you. My dear little Naru-chan, you may despise us for a while, but you'll come to understand our choice once you have kids. We love you, Naruto. She gives him one last kiss before nodding to Sarutobi to tell him to take him away. All I want you to do is eat right, grow tall like your daddy, make sure you study your magic real good, and train as hard as you can when you're old enough. Find a girl like your mommy, fall in love, and have lots of children above all else. Live your life to the fullest every day and always follow your ideas of right and wrong, no matter what anyone may say. Kushina, it has been an honor and a privilege to have you and Minato in Konoha, and to get to know you both. I promise you that I will do my best to make sure Naruto gets to Maki, but do this old man one favor. Try to come out of this confrontation alive. I do not want Naruto to be an orphan, and I do not wish Maki to feel the loss of a son and daughter. Farewell, and may Ishval guide your hands. The elderly man gives the young mother a sad look but complies with the request. He then flees with the youngest Draar in his arms, making his way to Fury, the town closest to the border, as her hair floats in the air, transforming into 9 red tails. Kushina turns back to face the dragon as her magic explodes and begins to flow off her in waves of dark red. She calls out, Blades magic. Ascalon. Yeba Maho. Asukaran. And conjures the fabled dragon-slaying blade Ascalon, which instantly glows with magic as she rushes Bronten. A red magic circle appears. The 2 young wizard saints would inflict numerous wounds on the Thunder Dragon during the many hours of the battle, but Bronten would also sustain wounds on the 2 humans even though it would require the majority of their remaining magic. Minato and Kushina would eventually figure out how to defeat the dragon and save their lives. The seal magic. Self-destruction spell. Shiru Maho. Jiritsu Hokai Mahojin, was cast on Bronten by the husband and wife team. The self-destruction seal is one that feeds on the magic of the person or thing it is applied to, destroying the subject and the surrounding area entirely. The seal was successful in killing Bronten the Thunder Dragon and destroying everything within a 10-mile radius, including Konoha's periphery. Focusing on the marker he had left in his mother's treehouse in the Magnolia Town forests, Minato used the last of his magic to use Hiraishin to transport Kushina and himself to safety. Poor Lyuzuka was shocked to see the telltale yellow flash of her only child's technique, but she was even more shocked to see her son and daughter-in-law look severely hurt and unconscious. By the grace of the gods of magic, poor Lyuzuka was able to save their lives in a short amount of time. Although she had helped her son and his wife recover from their coma, she promptly called Makarov to come to her house. However, she was informed by Ace of the Guild and Guildarts Clive, Minato's best friend, that the old master had gone to pick up their grandson, so she instructed the man to let Makarov know to come to her house as soon as he got back. But Makarov Draar would think his son and daughter-in-law were dead and would be much more affected by the loss because he would imagine losing not just his youngest son and daughter-in-law but also his grandson within hours of his son informing him of his intentions. Makarov would reach the small village of Fury, which is closest to the Bosco border. He would wait for Hiruzen and his youngest grandson for more than 2 days, but the man would never show up. In the hopes that his old friend would only be hampered by his advanced age and not by something else, the 5th strongest wizard saint would set out to find him. A day later, 150 miles outside of Konoha and about 5 miles from the village where they were supposed to meet, he would discover the man dead, surrounded by the remains of numerous cultists. He can already tell what happened as he takes in the scene. The cultists, who had probably sensed Naruto's immense magical power and desired the child, stopped Sarutobi on the way to bring him to Makarov. The man clearly refused, and a fight ensued. Hiruzen used all of his strength to fight, and despite holding onto Naruto, he was able to eliminate a large number of them. His downfall occurred when the wound he had previously sustained from fighting Bronten, which Kushina had partially healed, reopened and began to bleed profusely. The cultists had begun to overpower him, but before they could murder him and take the child, a third party showed up and used strong magic to eliminate every cultist. Makarov concluded that Hiruzen must have felt good about the third party and given his grandson to that person. The person then took the 1-year-old and fled to an unknown location. As he fell to his knees, the Titan of Fairy Tail wept for his missing grandson and for the loss of yet another loved one, his friend Hiruzen Sarutobi. But he soon pulled himself together, seeing that there was still hope that Naruto was still alive and that he would eventually return to Fairy Tail to be with his remaining family. He then used his Titan magic to properly bury his old friend after using fire magic to destroy the cultists' bodies. With the intention of finding and telling Tsunade and Jiraiya that their teacher, their surrogate father figure, had passed away, Makarov then turned and made his way home, back to Magnolia Town, and then back to Fairy Tail. Makarov, however, was unaware that the third party who saved Sarutobi and removed Naruto was a god rather than just a mortal wizard. He was also unaware that his son and daughter-in-law would be found alive but in comas that would keep them unconscious for 10 years. The Fury Mountains, X764. On October 14th, a single wooden house that appears to be built into the mountainside can be found at the highest peak of the Fury Mountain range, which is the one closest to Clover Town. There are only 2 people inside the house. The first is a tall man who weighs 300 pounds and is almost 6 feet 8 inches with a lot of muscle. His eyes are orange, and he has short, disheveled gray hair with white, dark blue, and dark yellow fringes. He is wearing dark pants, boots, and a loose top that resembles a tunic with the kanji for Storm God on the back. The second occupant, Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar, is easily identified by its small head of blonde hair. Zarok the Storm God is this man gazing down at the infant in his arms. Zarok reflects on how he became the father of the child. The Storm God was having a typical day, going about his business and enjoying himself while creating storms in Bosco, when he noticed a sudden surge in magical energy. Naturally curious, he decided to investigate the source. He discovered that the source of the magic he sensed was an elderly man, most likely in his 60s, but what truly caught his attention were all the men in purple attacking the elderly man, whom he knew to be cultists of the insane wizard Zirf. Despite his efforts to defend a child, he had to give the elderly man credit for his ability to defeat so many adversaries at once. But when he noticed that the man was bleeding profusely from his side and that the other men were attempting to reach the child, he became furious. After deciding he had had enough, Zarok emerged from the shadows and unleashed his magical power, stopping everyone in the clearing in their tracks without uttering a word. He used his control over the storm's elements, wind, water, and lightning, to quickly murder the cultists. He spoke with the elderly man after completing the final cultist and discovered that the child's name was Naruto Dreyar and the man's name was Hiruzen Sarutobi. Sarutobi informed him that he was from Konoha, a town that had just been attacked by the dragon Bronton, whom Zarok was familiar with because he had kicked the lizard's ass a few times before. He claimed that the boy was on his way to deliver his son to his grandfather after the cultist attacked him for Naruto, after the boy's parents gave their lives to stop the beast. When Zarok felt out for the child's magical container, he was astounded by what he discovered because the child possessed a lot of magical power that would undoubtedly grow stronger as he grew older, making him one of the most powerful wizards to ever live. Thus, he made a snap decision and informed the man that he wanted to train and teach the boy God Slayer magic Metsujin Maho at his house. When the man objected, he played on his fears by saying that he would send the boy directly to his grandfather after the boy turned 13. Sarutobi only needed to let him know who that was and where he was due to his teacher Hashirama Senju's affinity for the element of wood. The old wizard was aware of the potential power of a god slayer and granted the request. Zarok took baby Naruto from Sarutobi after learning that the boy's grandfather, Makarov Dreyar, was the guild master of the Magnolia Town Fairy Tail Guild. With the baby nestled in his arms, he used his power over wind to fly back towards his house after making sure the man was comfortable during his last hours on Earth. He can't help but wonder how the next 12 or 13 years will unfold as he looks down at the sleeping child. His new adopted son, Student, however, is certain to surpass all of his expectations and become the first person to learn and master all 3 storm elements before going on to master Storm Godslayer magic, Arashi no Metsujin Maho, itself. He smiles as he looks forward to the future while placing the child in his crib and entering a meditative state. A valley close to Clover Town in the Mountains of Fury. July 21st, X771. Naruto at 7 years old. Nearly 7 years have passed since that fateful day when the Thunder Dragon Bronton attacked the town of Konoha, and many courageous mages lost their lives in the battle. 7 years have passed since Minato Dreyar and Kushina Uzumaki Dreyar vanquished him using a strong seal, escaped unharmed, but fell into a coma. It has been 7 years since Zarok the Storm God adopted young Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar, who would rather simply go by Naruto Dreyar, as his son. At 4 feet 5 inches and 60 pounds, Naruto is tall for his age and nearly 8 years old. Naruto's mother's eye shape, slightly tanned skin tone, and 3 whisker-like birthmarks on both cheeks make him nearly identical to his father. He also has sparkling blue eyes and spiky blonde hair, minus the jaw-length bangs. In addition, he is a little stockier than his father, which is a result of the training Zarok has given him. As the man explains, a storm is swift and strong. As of right now, Naruto and Zarok are getting along well. When he turned 2, God started teaching him to read and write, which he picked up quite quickly and proved to be almost as intelligent as his biological father. In addition to starting Naruto's physical training that year, he started teaching the boy about the world's and magic's history when he was 4 years old. He started the boy's magical training when he was 5 years old. He tested the boy's affinities for lightning, Kaminari K Kakushu Maho, wind K's Maho, water, Mizu K Kakushu Maho, and seal, Shiru Maho, using a unique tool only available to God's low affinities to light, Hikari no Maho, rune Maho, chain, Rensa Maho, and re-equip magics Konso Maho, are also present. The god was ecstatic to learn that the boy would use his Storm God Slayer magic, Arashi no Metsujin Maho, in addition to all the storm's individual components. He taught Naruto the Lightning God Slayer, Kaminari no Metsujin Maho, Wind God Slayer, Fujin no Metsujin Maho, and Water God Slayer, Sujin no Metsujin Maho, magics. To begin his magical training, however, he informed Naruto that his own God Slayer magics, Metsujin Maho, would never be as strong as God Slayers who specialize in just those elements, but they would still be more powerful than Dragon Slayers of those elements. He began by teaching Naruto Lightning God Slayer magic, which the young blonde learned very quickly and effortlessly. By the time he was 6 years old, he had mastered the majority of the spells. He began learning Wind God Slayer magic at the age of 6. Since wind and lightning are opposing elements, this one was a little more difficult to learn, but he quickly picked it up, and by the time he was 7, he knew almost all of the spells. His training in Water God Slayer magic started at age 7 and continues to this day. To allow the boy to practice his new spells without flooding their home, they relocated from their mountain peak home to a nearby valley with a river. For this training, Naruto is seen in his fighting stance, sporting combat boots, black shorts, and a loose dark orange shirt with Zarok serving as his sparring partner. He takes deep breaths and gets ready to perform every Water God Slayer spell he has learned so far. With the speed of a boy twice his age, the little blonde unleashes his magic and charges at his teacher. Father, a large fist of black water emerges from the seal and heads straight for Zarok, but the god is ready for this and cocks his fist back before bringing it forward and hitting the fist of water directly, dispersing it. He does this while yelling, "Water God's Ocean Fist." Sujin no Oshan Tekken, as a dark blue magic circle appears in front of him. The boy is not there when he looks forward for Naruto, but he soon detects him above him as the boy descends toward him while his right foot is covered in black water while chanting, "Water God's Wave Kick." Sujin no Nami Kiku, and bringing his water-encased foot down on the god's left forearm, the boy attempts a falling axe kick. The man doesn't even move an inch, instead grabbing him by that foot and throwing him away. Before turning and bringing a magic seal to his hand, Naruto lands on his feet. Then, as he rushes the god once more, he names his latest attack, Water God's Trident. Sujin no Tridento, and tries to stab the big man with it. Suddenly, water forms into a black liquid trident. He throws the trident at the god, who simply sidesteps it, but Zarok avoids all of his blows and even kicks him in the stomach, sending him flying back into the river. The blonde swiftly emerges from the river's water, leaps out, and chooses to use his final spell, the first God Slayer spell he has learned for each element, to end the spar. Before a huge magic seal materializes in front of him and he thunders out, "Water God's Bellow." Sujin no Dogo, and unleashes a tremendous amount of black water in the form of a crushing wave that washes away everything in its path, including trees and rocks. He takes a deep breath and brings all the water in the area to his mouth. However, as the wave reaches Zarok, the man opens his mouth and swallows the entire wave. After giving him a belly pat and nodding his head in agreement, the god turns to face Naruto, who is lying flat on his back with profuse perspiration streaming down his face and a heavy, magically exhausted breathing. He approaches the kid to hear him lamenting the gods who drive slaves and chuckles, "Ha ha 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 ha, well Naruto, you've done well thus far, though you've only learned 4 Water God Slayer spells. You've trained them to an acceptable level. Next week I'll start you on the next few spells. In the meantime continue training as you have been, and don't think I haven't noticed you practicing with the regular versions of the elements. Keep up the good work." Thanks Zerok-2-san, I do my best so when I finally leave you I'll be strong enough to handle anything. But I've been meaning to ask you if you have any books on seal and rune magic. The blonde says, grinning at the god as he extends his hand for the boy to accept. Zerok puts his hand to his chin and tilts his head in contemplation. He tries to remember whether he has books on those two magics, but he knows he has books on many different kinds of magic because there isn't much to do but learn when you live forever. He smiles and responds to his adopted son after taking some time to sort through his memories. Yeah, I have a lot of books on seal and rune magics. In fact, the books I have were written by the wizards who created those two magics. When we return to the peak I'll give them to you and you can learn those magics on your own time. Now how about you go get cleaned up and changed and then we'll eat lunch and do your history lessons. I think you're going to like today's lesson as it's on guilds. The god chuckles at the blonde's ecstasy as he whoops with delight at this news and dashes off to wash up. He goes into the cave where they are staying and prepares a healthy lunch for them. After a few minutes, the blonde enters wearing his typical boots, dark pants, and a red shirt with a black lightning bolt on the front, a dark wave pattern on the hem, and a tornado on the back. Following lunch, Zerok sits down with the boy and starts explaining to him Fiore's guild history, but when he arrives at Fairy Tail, he becomes a little solemn, and when Naruto asks what's wrong, the god decides to finally tell him the truth. He informs him that his grandfather is the current Fairy Tail master and that his parents had initially intended for him to be raised by the man, but he took him in after the man who was carrying him was attacked. This initially infuriated the child, who screamed that he had effectively taken him away from his family. However, he calmed down and said it was all right after realizing that God had raised him with love and compassion and had even taught him a potent kind of magic. He then inquired about his parents and grandfather, to which the man replied that his grandfather, Makarov Dreyar, was the fifth strongest of the 10 wizard saints and the source of his last name. He informs him that the only thing he knew about Makarov was that he was the third master of the guild and was known as the Titan of Fairy Tail. According to what he learned about the boy's parents, Minato Dreyar, Makarov's youngest son, and Kushina Uzumaki Dreyar were wizard saints who had both mastered seal magic. However, he claims that his mother was a master of blades magic, Yeba Maho, and chain magic, Rensa Maho, while his father was a master of lightning and wind magics. That day, Naruto swore that by the time he left Zerok, he would have mastered all of his God Slayer magics and at least become proficient in seal and rune magics. That day, he also made the decision to honor his mother by learning to wield a sword. He put in a lot of effort over the course of the following year to master all of the Water God Slayer magic along with learning Requip magic, which allowed him to call forth and store his wooden training sword at will. He also made significant progress with the standard elemental spells. Fury Mountains close to Clover Town, the 21st of August, X 772. Naruto, age 8 almost 9 when Zerok and Naruto, who is now 8 years old, return to their house at the top of the mountain. Naruto is exhausted, covered in perspiration and water, his clothes are ripped and burned, and his hair is messier than usual. He recently completed the last test for his unique God Slayer magics, which is the cause of this. Although he is a little more worn out as a result, he passed with flying colors when he had to demonstrate that he had mastered all the techniques to a sufficient level for the Storm God. After missing it for the past year and a half, he is now going to his room to take a shower and change into some pajamas. He just wants to have dinner and then go to bed, but he turns to face the man with a questioning expression as he feels Zerok's hand on his shoulder. The deity looks at the brunette. You did well today, Naruto. I'm proud of the progress you've made the last almost 4 years. I'll get you those books I promised you on seal and rune magic and you can get started on reading and learning them tomorrow. This next week is free, but next week you need to steel your resolve, because that is when we begin your Storm God Slayer magic, Arashi no Metsujin Maho, training. If you can learn it you will be the first ever Storm God Slayer in recorded history. I have faith in you, kid. And then proceeds to leave a stunned but thrilled Naruto in his wake. As promised, the boy discovered the 2 books on his bedside table as soon as he emerged from the bathroom, clean and in his pajamas. When Zerok arrived to inform him that dinner was ready, he discovered him reading the seal magic book he had taken to his bed. Naruto went back to his room and began reading the rune magic book. After a substantial meal of rice, barbecue beef, and vegetables, this is how he fell asleep. The blonde would spend the entire week doing his physical training in the morning, exploring seal and rune magic in the afternoon, and meditating at night to get his mind ready for the demands of the training. Naruto was prepared to learn Storm God Slayer magic and could declare himself a novice in the 2 new magics he had been studying within a week. On August 28, X 772, the blonde God Slayer is standing in the training grounds inside the mountain peak. If you look closely, you can see that his body is vibrating with excitement. The Storm God Zerok, his adopted father and teacher, is standing across from him. Zerok clears his throat to attract Naruto's attention as he looks at the boy with a hint of pride. considering how strong he is already and how much stronger he is going to become. Alright Naruto, today begins your training in my magic, Storm God Slayer magic. Now in order to properly use Storm God Slayer magic you'll need to combine the 3 other God Slayer magics together. The storm is the unmatched speed of lightning, the deadly force of wind, and the crushing power of water all rolled into a single destructive force. The gray-haired man turns around, revealing his back, and continues, now the first spell you're going to learn is the first spell you learned for each of the individual elements, that being the Storm God's bellow. Now watch carefully. Zarok summons his magic energy, and the force of it is enough to break the ground and knock the blonde to his knees. Naruto looks at Zarok in wonder at what the god has said. As a huge gray magic seal materializes in front of him, the god inhales deeply, gathering lightning, air, and water to his mouth. He then utters the words, Storm God's bellow, Urashi no Dogo, and unleashes a massive swirling vortex of black water and wind with black lightning at its center. After striking a boulder and totally destroying it, the attack punches through the mountain wall behind it, creating a massive hole in the mountain. It then exits to the outside and keeps going, punching through the next peak before eventually dying out. The power of a single Storm God Slayer spell leaves Naruto speechless. When he masters that spell and all the other Storm God Slayer magic spells, the blonde can't help but imagine how fierce he will be. Oops, I think I put a little too much power behind that one. It was only supposed to obliterate the boulder. Oh well, what do I care, I'm a freaking god. That will just make the mortals respect my power more, Zarok says, laughing and scratching the back of his head as he examines the damage he caused. The antics of his adoptive father make Naruto perspire, but he quickly gets over it and starts attempting to use the Storm God's bellow while Zarok watches. The blonde makes numerous attempts throughout the day without success, but God advises him not to give up because it will take some time to achieve the ideal balance between the 3 components for the remainder of X772. Naruto trained in Storm God Slayer magic. In this manner he was given a magic pen to use for writing his seal and rune magics on his 9th birthday. On December 25th of that year, X772, the blonde finally achieved what he had been working for months. He takes a deep breath while standing in the training area, drawing in lightning, water, and wind as he yells, Storm God's bellow, and unleashes a vortex of black wind and water. His black lightning is circling around the outside of the vortex rather than inside it. A gray magic seal appears in front of him. Even though Naruto's bellow is only 1/3 as large as Zarok's, it has enough force to crush the target boulder to dust. When the blonde finally performs his first Storm God Slayer spell, he whoops with delight. Zarok watches with pride and approval, knowing now that he was correct and that the little blonde will succeed and have the capacity to become an expert magician. The god with gray hair raises his hands. Very good Naruto. Very good indeed. The bellow, one of the hardest spells to learn. It's why I've always had you learn it first. When starting each element the physical spells will be a bit easier but still very hard, and the God Slayer's secret arts, Metsujin Ogi, will be the hardest to learn. Naruto nods his head in agreement when he says, but with determination and heart, you will master everything I've got left to teach you. Also starting this coming year I'm going to allow you to start going into Clover Town, so that you can get used to human interaction, and maybe find some friends your age. Even I know it's unhealthy for you to constantly be up here in the mountains with me. In addition to nodding in agreement, the blonde is secretly thrilled about the opportunity to interact with and make friends with kids his own age. The two eat a dinner of fish, rice, and vegetables that evening after training all day and only marginally boosting the power of his new bellow before going to bed. Magnolia Town's East Forest, the treehouse of poor Lyuzuka. X773. On May 12th, the elderly pink-haired healer is seen sweeping her home as part of her daily routine. Her son Minato Drayar and his wife Kushina Uzumaki Drayar have been her 2 long-term patients for the past 9 years, but she has never been able to determine why they have been in comas for so long. Makarov, Minato's father and former teammate and lover, has visited the two once a week for the past 9 years to see how they are doing. Each time, she has told him that nothing has changed. She was upset and asked the third master of Fairy Tail where the baby was 9 years ago after he returned empty-handed from picking up their grandson Naruto. When he informed her that Hiruzen had died defending Naruto and had given him to someone who had aided them, she slapped him across the head and referred to him as an old fool before throwing him out of her home. It had taken her a whole week to calm down and allow the elderly man to return to her home. After discussing it, she came to the conclusion that all she could do was wish for Naruto to grow up happy and well cared for and eventually join Fairy Tail or one of the other guilds. They then talked about what to do about Kushina and Minato, and Makarov suggested that they pretend they had died at Konoha while keeping their status a secret. As a result, only she, Makarov, and Guildarts, the latter being the ace of the guild and Minato's closest friend, knew the truth about the two now deceased wizard saints since Makarov had seen a certain joy in the man's eyes when he had informed him that his sister-in-law and younger brother had passed away. They made the decision to keep it a secret from even Ivan. For the past 9 years, she has been taking care of her daughter-in-law and her baby boy in the same manner that she did when he was a baby. She has kept them clean, fed them to maintain their strength, and made sure that their bowels and bladders are emptied every day. The last of which is done with a spell. She's going to get a shock today, though, because neither of them has made a sound or even twitched in all that time. Poor Lyuzica is cleaning the two long-term patients' room when all of a sudden she hears a new sound, groaning, coming from both of their beds. Setting down her broom, she approaches them to assess their vital signs. She discovers that they are getting better quickly, and before long, she sees that both of them are twitching different body parts. Kushina's left foot, Minato's right-hand fingers. The two accomplish another amazing feat within 2 hours of beginning their movements. They open their eyes at first, it moves slowly, and they quickly close them once more to block out the sun's bright light. Eventually, their violet and blue eyes open completely, respectively, and they start to look around. When the blonde sees his mother's face, he smiles back and says, "Hey Ka-chan, I guess my plan worked after all, and I was able to teleport Kushi-chan and myself to your house for treatment." The pink-haired woman approaches her son's bedside, caresses his cheek, and says, "Welcome back to the world of the living, Minato-chan. We have missed you dearly, my sweet boy." The red-haired healer merely smiles at her, but the pink-haired healer nods, removes her hand from her boy's face, and walks over to Kushina's bed to examine her. Poor Lyuzica cringes a little when she says, "Thank you, poor Lyuzica Ka-chan, for healing Minkun and I, but I have to know, how is Naru-chan? How is my baby?" Neither of the younger mages notices, but Minato chooses to ask the question. Both women laugh at him when he asks, "Ka-san, what's wrong? Did something happen to Naruto? Where is our son? What is going on with my voice? Why do I sound older?" The redhead looks at her husband's face and realizes that it does appear a little older than she remembers, and she questions why. The two former wizard saints are left in complete shock by the pink-haired woman's statement. "I'll answer your questions in reverse order. First off, why you sound older is because you are older, Minato-chan. The year is X773 and you two have been in comas since just after you flashed here on October 13th, by 764 inches." She sighs and rubs her temples before deciding to get right to the point. "As for where Naru-chan is, I don't know. Makarov went to meet Hiruzen like you asked him to, but the man never showed. When Makarov went to find the man, he found him dead, surrounded by the bodies of several cultists and Naruto missing. He sent Guildarts out to find the babe as soon as he returned to the guild, but after 2 months of searching, Guildarts found nothing, not even a trace of Naruto. The news causes both of them immense sorrow and great anger when it comes to Minato. But before the blonde can use his magic to vent his anger and stop Kushina from crying, poor Lyuzica keeps going. However, don't despair, there is an upside to this. The old fool said that he sensed the presence of a third party in the area, and that third party was the one responsible for the deaths of the cultists. It looked like he or she helped Hiruzen, who was dying from an earlier wound, and in thanks, and trusting the person, Hiruzen handed Naru-chan to that person, and they are the ones who have him. Kushina is nevertheless upset. How is that an upside? Some stranger has had my baby for the last 9 years. He probably doesn't even know who he is. He might have a new name. Hell, the person who raised him may have raised him to be a psychopathic murderer. How is that an upside? Tell me." But before the woman with pink hair can respond, a voice emerges from behind her. "It's an upside because Hiruzen would not have trusted Naruto-chan to someone evil. It is an upside because God's willing the boy will come and join Fairy Tail in the next couple of years. And if not Fairy Tail, then another guild that we are friendly with. That is the upside, Kushina-chan, that we will see our youngest Drayar again." They all turn to see Makarov standing in the doorway, his eyes full of unwavering faith that what he has said is true. Using his Titan magic, Giayanto Maho, he enters the room, grows slightly taller, about 6 feet, and then approaches his son's bed to give him a firm embrace while patting his back. "It's so good to have you back, my boy. You have been sorely missed, not just by this old man, but by the entire guild. Especially Guildarts. In fact, you missed his wedding and his wife leaving him." "Thank you too, San. It's good to be back. I can't believe that we've missed so much time and so many events, but can you be certain that my son will find us? Please be honest with me. You owe me that much, old man?" The blonde returned the hug, grinning at the elderly man. The older man nods his head gravely, and Minato nods in agreement, seeing no deception in his eyes, before letting the conversation end. Makarov then approaches Kushina's bed and gives her a kiss on the forehead and a softer hug than his son, with tears in her eyes. The redhead buries her face in her surrogate father's chest and gives him a tight hug. "It is also good to have you back, my daughter. You will be a shining light for all the younger females at the guild, someone for them to look up to. Welcome back." While it's all well and good that they are awake again, there are still many checkups to be made. They will need rehabilitation for using their magic, and when they get that back down, then they will have to retrain up their spells and fighting styles before I even consider giving them the all clear to return to active duty. Poor Lyuzuka finishes this statement with piercing glares at the other three people in the room. The woman's words cause Minato and Kushina to nod their heads rapidly, and Makarov laughs and returns to his normal size. A slave driver as always, my dear, you'll never change, poor Lyuzuka-chan. The pink-haired healer only gives him a broom smack over the head and a look that yells, leave now or get hurt. As a result, he makes the wise decision to flee and return to the guild. While laughing at the first's parents' antics, the redhead and blonde think to themselves that some things never change. Their thoughts then shift to the 9 years of their lives that have been lost, the realization that they must now adjust to being 34 years old, and the absence of their only child. In closing, they both silently promise that when they are at last prepared for battle once more, they will set out to find their Naru-chan and won't give up until they do. This is how two former wizard saints were returned to the world and fairy tale. Before poor Lyuzuka reluctantly agreed to let them return to active duty, the two would need a full year to get back into top fighting form. Everyone in Fairy Tail would be happy to see them again, especially Gildarts, who was happy to see his best friend again, but one man, Ivan, would not accept their return. He was furious that he had been misled about his brother's death and planned a revenge attack. The two would not stay long, though, as they would leave a week later to search for their son. Town of Clover X 773. On October 8th, we see our blonde god slayer strolling through the streets of Clovertown today. Just as he has been doing every day for the past 10 months, he is traveling to Ichiraku Ramen, a small store he first came upon during his January 1st visit to Clovertown. He was hungry after shopping for new clothes. A girl who was 5 years older than him, roughly 14 or 15 years old, was among the other customers in the clothing store. The girl's name was Ayame Ichiraku, and she told him that she and her father owned the greatest ramen restaurant in all of Fury. Since Naruto had never eaten ramen before and was hungry, he followed her to her family's store, and he was delighted to do so. When he first tried the delectable ramen prepared by Ayame's father Tucci, he fell in love with it right away and has been enjoying several bowls of it once a month ever since. It also turned out that Ayame was Naruto's very first friend. The blonde has met and gotten to know other kids his own age because of Ayame. Among the kids he has met and made friends with is Shikamaru Nara, who is tall for his age, somewhat thin, intelligent, and lethargic despite being overweight and of average height for a 10-year-old. Shoji Akamichi is a laid-back kid who is always seen holding a bag of chips. He has 2 more female friends in addition to the boys he has made. Naruto would consider Ino Yamanaka, who has platinum blonde hair, to be extremely attractive for a 10-year-old girl. Ino, whose mother owns a flower shop in Clovertown, is your average girly girl and a gossip queen. Sakura Haruno, a girl with pink hair, comes in second. Her family runs the clothing store where he purchased his clothes before Naruto noticed and threw the bullies away. Sakura, a bright but shy girl, used to feel self-conscious about her forehead because she had been teased for it. Sakura has been more forthcoming ever since Naruto has spent months hanging out with and getting to know his friends. He has discovered that Sakura, like her parents, is a normal civilian, but Shikamaru, Ino, and Shoji are all from mage families and are mages in training. He revealed to them that he was also a mage, with a focus on water, wind, and lightning magic. The only issue is that none of his friends are aware of his true identity. This is because Zarok instructed him to use transformation magic to cover up his whisker marks and change the color of his hair and eyes when he first left to come to Clover Town. When asked why, the god simply replied that there were people in Clover Town who would associate him with his biological father and tell his grandfather that they had seen him, but they didn't want that just yet. The blonde complied and followed instructions, removing his whisker marks, turning his eyes brown, and changing his hair to black. He even made up a false name for himself, Arashi Namikaze. As Arashi Namikaze, he feels terrible about lying to his friends and their parents, but he can't have his grandfather find him and take him to Fairy Tail until his training with Zarok is finished. When he eventually arrives at Ichiraku Ramen, he is pulled out of his reverie and smiles as he walks into the store. Ayame Nichan, Tucci Ojasan, your favorite customer has arrived. When the nearly 10-year-old takes his customary seat at the counter and the 15-year-old with the brown hair approaches him, the ramen chef and his daughter beam at his excitement. The black-haired boy greets her with a bright smile and says, "Hello Arashi-kun. How's my ototo today?" "I'm okay, Ayame nay, though I'm a little sore. Zartu-san is a slave driver when it comes to training anyway. I'll take my usual." The boy's antics make the brown-haired teen laugh, but she nods and says, "All right then. 2-san 5 bowls of miso ramen to start." Her father turns to face her slightly and says, "Coming right up." A few minutes later, Ayame puts the first bowl in front of the boy, who then starts eating. He is shown bowl after bowl of delectable noodles, which he eats all of. Eventually, he has a pile of bowls with the number 15 next to him as he pats his belly and lets out a big belch. He puts the jewels for the meal on the counter and says, "Excuse me, that hit the spot, great ramen is always Oji-san." But before he can get down and leave, Ayame returns the money to him. No, you're not paying today, the food is on the house this time, Arashi Ododo." The boy is surprised, but he smiles appreciatively and says, "Thank you. Well, I'll see you later, Ayame. Nay, I'm going to go hang out with the guys." He leaves without noticing the brown-haired teenager laugh at her younger brother's behavior or shake her head. He spends the remainder of the day hanging out with Sakura, Shoji, Ino, and Shikamaru. He even challenges Shikamaru to a game of chess after sparring with Shoji to learn how to use his family's magic. He lets Sakura and Ino drag him around town to a number of shops before going to the Yamanaka flower shop and using his water magic to water all the flowers and various plants. To his surprise, though, he receives gifts from his friends and their parents throughout the day. He receives various strategy games from Shikamaru and his parents Choji, and his parents give him recipes for foods that are high in protein and can aid in the rapid restoration of magic energy. He actually receives 2 gifts from Sakura and Ino. A bonsai tree from Mrs. Yamanaka, a book on meditation techniques from Ino, and a kiss on the cheek from both of them. A gray coat with black fur around the collar that reaches the back of his knees is the second gift from Sakura and her parents, and it will always hold a special place in his heart. On the back of the coat are the symbols for the 3 elements he uses: a lightning bolt, a wave, and 3 interconnected swirls that stand for wind. These swirls are arranged in a triangle. He receives an unexpected response when he eventually asks Mebuki Haruno why he has received these gifts from everyone. "Everyone has given you all these gifts because your birthday is in 2 days and we know that you won't be around for us to celebrate it with you, so we all got together and decided to give you your gifts early. And we hope that you enjoy all of them. Hopefully next year we'll be able to throw you a big birthday party, Arashi-kun, to let you know how special you are to not only our children, but to us as well." The 10-year-old can only nod his head and smile appreciatively, stunned and speechless. He soon departs Clover Town and returns to the summit, where he presents Zerok with all of his presents, particularly his new coat. When the god sees how content the blonde is, he smiles and tells him that although it's a great coat, he might want to keep it in his re-equip space while they train. After turning 10 2 days later, Naruto receives his gift from Zerok and starts training in the God Slayer secret arts of lightning, water, and wind. The blonde would endure hardships for the next almost 4 years, but he would persevere and master all of Zerok's Storm God Slayer and God Slayer secret art spells. Additionally, he would advance significantly in seal and rune magic, becoming proficient by the time he was 13 years old. But during all of that time, his friendships with people in Clover Town would support him through his difficult training, and Earthland wouldn't know what had happened when Naruto Uzumaki Drayar returned to the world. Near Clover Town, at the base of the mountains, July 7, X 777. 13-year-old Naruto at the foot of the mountain that our blonde god slayer has lived on since he was a year old. We find him standing. Naruto has slightly changed over the years. He is now almost 14 years old, tall for his age at 5 feet 7 inches and 115 pounds. His eyes are the same, but he no longer looks like his father because he cut his hair short, hairstyle from chapter 700. He is dressed in a black muscle shirt with a dark orange vest over it, gray slacks with several pockets, black combat boots, and a larger version of the jacket he received from the Harunos when he was 10. His teacher and adoptive father, Zerok the Storm God, Arashi Kami, is standing next to the blonde and can only watch with pride. He has been caring for Naruto for 13 years, during which time he has seen him develop from a lively and inquisitive youngster into a strong, wise, and magnificent mage. He is proud to call the blonde his son and the Storm God Slayer, Arashi no Metsujin, because he has persevered through all of God's most difficult training and lessons. Well, this is it, kid. The last 13 years have been fun, but it's time for us to part ways. I have nothing more to teach you and you've exceeded my expectations in every way. I want you to know that no matter who you came from, I am damn proud to call you not only the Storm God Slayer but my son, the gray-haired god says, turning to face the blonde and giving him a shoulder pad to get his attention. Naruto beams with pride as he shocks the god with a hug. Thank you, Zerok Tusan. That means so much coming from you. I've had a lot of fun growing up with you, and all the training you gave me really pushed me to my limits and beyond. But if I learned one thing, it's to never give up, to keep moving forward, and to fight till my last breath. And when I make a promise to always keep it, you've given me the philosophy that I'll live by for the rest of my life. I'll miss you, but it is time for me to rejoin my family. Before he disappears in the wind, Zerok yanks away and tousles his hair one final time. Although he made his debut as himself to his friends and their families last year, Naruto gives a small smile before heading down to Clover Town to make his big debut. At least to the rest of the world, his pretending to be Arashi Namikaze caused the children to feel deceived, and the adults wanted to go out and tell his grandfather immediately. Nevertheless, he was able to make things right, informing Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, and Sakura that despite not having the name Arashi and being blonde, he has the same personality and has never pretended to be someone he is not. Because he was still in training and wanted to honor the Dreyar name when he eventually joined Fairy Tail, he persuaded his parents not to tell his grandfather Makarov about his visits to Clover Town. As a result, they gave in to his entreaties. But that day, Shikaku Nara taught him something he was unaware of before. His parents were still living. His parents reportedly went into a coma for 9 years before waking up in X773. After that, they started looking for him in X774. They even asked their old friends if they had seen him, and they all informed the two at the time that they had not. He now had to look forward to meeting and getting to know his parents. He enters Clover Town proper after his usual 1-hour walk, decides to fill up his stomach before telling his friends he's going to Fairy Tail, and heads straight to Ichiraku Ramen. When he gets there, he exclaims, "Ayame ne, Tuchi Oji, I've come for the food of the gods." The two ramen chefs grin broadly as they hear the blonde's voice. The two haven't changed much over the years. Ayame, who turned 19 last month, is slightly taller at 5 feet 2 inches and has a very feminine figure with mid-cup-sized breasts as evidenced by her white attire. She has transitioned from waitress to co-chef in recent years with the exception of adding another age line to his face. Tucci hasn't changed at all. He sits down at the counter as usual and is greeted by the two ramen chefs, while the older girl comes over to take his order. The blonde pauses to think before responding, "So what will it be today, Naruto Ototo? The usual or something new? I'll start off with 5 extra large bowls of pork ramen. Then 5 extra large bowls of shrimp ramen please. Nei-chan, I'm not going to eat my usual amount seeing as I'm heading to Magnolia in a little while." The brown-haired woman nods her head. "All right, that order is coming right up," and begins preparing his meal. He chats with the Ichiraku as usual while he eats his ramen. At one point, Ayame asks him why he is going to Magnolia, and she instantly understands when he explains that he is going there to join his grandfather's guild. Fairy Tail as usual. He pats his stomach after finishing his last bowl when Tucci tells him that his meal is on the house as a parting gift. He bows his head and expresses his gratitude to the man for his generosity before departing and promising to stay in touch. He leaves the ramen shop and goes to the Nara house because Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino would be there at this time of day, probably just lounging in the early afternoon breeze, and because Sakura and Ino are best friends. Sakura would typically be nearby where Ino was when he arrives at the Nara residence. He knocks on the door and is greeted by Yoshino Nara, who smiles at him despite the fact that he is slightly taller than her. She is only 5 feet 3 inches. "Naruto-kun, come on in if you're looking for the kids. You know where to find them. I take it today is the day." The blonde smiles as she responds. "Yeah, today's the day, Yoshino-san. Today is the day I return to my family. You know, I'm actually a little scared. What if I'm not the son that Tu-chan and Ka-chan want? What if my skill as a mage isn't good enough for Ji-chan and he won't let me be a fairy tale mage? Oh, Naruto-kun, you silly boy, you worry for nothing. I happen to know for a fact that your parents have loved you since the day you were born, and even now they continue to search for you so that they can hold you in their arms and tell you how much they've missed you. A parent's job is to love their child unconditionally no matter who or what they become," the Nara matriarch says, gently touching his face and gazing at him with understanding. "Your grandfather is a very kind and cheerful man who will accept almost anyone into Fairy Tail. In fact, the guild is known for having the most destructive mages, and Makarov Dono simply lets them do whatever they want, so don't worry about Makarov Dono denying you entry into Fairy Tail because you aren't skilled as a mage. A boy shouldn't be afraid, so cheer up, young man." "Thank you for that, Yoshino-san. Well, I'm heading out back to see the guys and girls." He walks past her and makes his way to the back porch after she pats him on the cheek as he stands tall and flashes his typical foxy smile. He immediately finds the 4 he's looking for when he steps outside. Ino is caring for Mrs. Nara's flower bush. Shikamaru and Sakura are sitting across from one another playing shogi, and Choji is watching them while eating his usual bag of chips. Shikamaru still wears his shoulder-length hair in a pineapple-shaped ponytail, but he has grown taller, standing at 5 feet 5 and weighing 110 pounds. Over the years, each of them has changed slightly. He is wearing brown trousers, gray sandals, and a green-lined mesh t-shirt underneath a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges. A circle with a line through it is adorning the back and the sleeves. He currently has a focused expression on his typically lethargic face. He now wears tiny hoop earrings in his ears, which is one change that indicates he is the Nara clan's heir. Sakura has undergone a little more change than Shikamaru. At the age of 14, Her pink hair reaches her shoulder blades and is held up by a burnt orange headband that Naruto gave her on her 13th birthday. She is 4 feet 11 inches and still developing a feminine figure. Her hips are slightly wider and her breasts are a firm B cup, but she still exhibits some childish traits. Sakura is dressed in tight dark green shorts, strappy sandals with a slight heel, and a dark red keep-out dress with white circular patterns that zips up. Even though his body weight has started to shift more toward muscle than fat, Choji is still a plump boy. He now stands at 5 feet 10 inches and weighs about 200 pounds, making him marginally taller than Naruto. He is dressed in black pants, a long white scarf, a short-sleeved green haori over a light green shirt, and combat boots. He still has swirl marks on his cheeks and spiky brown hair like Shikamaru. He has hoop earrings in his ears, signifying his status as the Akamichi clan's heir. Probably the most of the four, Ino has changed the most. Her current height is 5 feet 1. Her figure is curvaceous but extremely athletic, and her still developing bust is at least a small C cup. Her bangs cover the right side of her face, and her platinum blonde hair now reaches her waist and is pulled back into a high ponytail. She is wearing a purple apron skirt that is cut off at the sides, exposing her long legs, a short purple vest-like blouse with a raised collar, bandages covering the flesh on her legs and stomach, as required by her father, and high-heeled shoes for the same reason as Shikamaru and Choji. She wears hoops in her ears. Sakura and Ino have both grown to have intense crushes on the blonde, which is the biggest change that has occurred over time. Although they are constantly vying for his attention, Naruto has no idea that they like him more than just as a friend because he inherited his father's thickness with women. "Hey Choji, how's the game going?" asks the blonde as she approaches and takes a seat beside Choji. The fat teenager eats some chips and then responds, "Hey Naruto, the game is going pretty good. Sakura-san has been giving Shikamaru a real challenge." The blonde nods, acknowledging Sakura's intelligence, but the problem is that because Shikamaru has an IQ of over 200 and Sakura has an IQ of about 160, it is nearly impossible to beat the slothful teenager in strategy games. The only person who can do so is his father Shikaku. A squeal of "Naruto-kun" breaks the stillness and the two players focus as the boy feels a weight land on his back and looks over his shoulder to see Ino hanging off him, her arms encircling his neck from behind. "So mean, Naruto-kun, why would you choose to greet Choji first instead of a beautiful girl like me?" The platinum blonde pouts a little. "Well, you were busy, so I figured I'd leave you to your task," the male blonde says, laughing at her antics. Choji was an easy choice because all he was doing was eating and watching Shikamaru and Sakura-chan play shogi. "You understand, right, Ino-chan?" he asks, giving the other blonde a winning smile that makes her shudder inwardly with joy. She removes herself from his back and stands beside him on his left, her arms still encircling his neck. Naruto laughs once more. "I understand, Naruto-kun, what do you say you and I get out of here and go out on a date?" Sakura and Shika could be at that for hours. Before he can respond, the girl with pink hair finally loses it. "Get off of Naruto-kun, Ino pig. He wouldn't go on a date with you if you were the last girl in Fury. Naruto-kun would much rather go out with a girl like me. A girl who is mature and intelligent, not some flighty bleach blonde like you." This has the effect of costing Sakura the shogi game in addition to igniting the two girls' typical argument. Naruto and the other two boys lie down in the shade and gaze at the clouds while the blonde and pink-headed girls quarrel over who he prefers. Everyone's attention is drawn to the slack Nara's size after a few minutes. "Troublesome, you came here to say goodbye, didn't you, Naruto?" The girls' expressions turn dejected, and the blonde god slayer nods his head in agreement. He looks at the faces of each of his friends and says, "Yeah, I'm heading to Magnolia Town in on the next train, which is an hour from now." He then hugs the two girls and says, "Don't be sad, Sakura-chan and Ino-chan, it's not like I'm going to be gone forever. We can write each other, and heck, when I'm not on missions I can come to Clover Town and visit once a month, so we'll still see each other. We'll definitely see each other frequently, Sakura-chan, since we just found out you can use magic and you want to be a healer. You can always train under my grandmother, who is reputed to be among the best in the business. If you guys don't like the Rune Knights, you can quit and join Fairy Tail." At this, they all nod, and the girls instantly get excited. The five friends then spend the remainder of the hour simply chatting. When Naruto's friends accompany him to the train station, they are shocked to discover that all of their parents are also there. Mebuki Haruno approaches and hands the blonde a brown paper package. When he opens it, he discovers that it is a brand new coat that is marginally larger than the one he is currently wearing. The blonde gives the woman a thank you hug and says, "That coat is for when you grow some more. It's made to fit you up 6 feet 1 in height, as that's how tall your father is, and we believe you'll take after him in that regard. Some food for the trip, kid. I'm glad Choji made friends with you, Naruto, because you can eat just as much as an Akamichi and have never made fun of our family for our girth. I wish you luck with your family." Choza Akamichi approaches and hands the blonde a styrofoam food box. Naruto nods up at the big man, who is 6 feet 6 inches. Shikaku hands him a piece of paper and says, "Give that to whoever jams you up and they'll let ya go. Just try not to be too troublesome and go looking for trouble." Naruto laughs at the man but nods his head in agreement. "If you ever get into any trouble with the Rune Knights or the Magic Council, Maho Hyogen, which is a part of Fairy Tail, I'm pretty sure you'll do eventually, give that to whomever jams you up and they'll let ya go." When the younger blonde looks at Inoichi, who has come forward to give him some flowers, he quickly clarifies, "Those are for you to give to your mother as a I'm home Ka-chan gift. I remembered what her favorites were. It's to help ease the transition back into at least Kushina's life. As for your father, just talk to him about seals and he'll take to you right away." Naruto silently thanks him. "Thank you everyone, for everything you've done for me the past 4 years. You have been my friends, and in some ways my family. I won't ever forget any of you, and this won't be the last you'll see of me. Goodbye all." He then walks inside the train car and takes a seat as the train lurches forward and speeds off towards Magnolia Town. He hears the train whistle and the announcer say that the train to Magnolia Town is leaving in 5 minutes. Magnolia Town, July 7th, X777. When the train stops at Magnolia train station 2 hours later, the blonde gets off the train and looks around the station, noting that there are a lot more people here than a Clover station. After eating the food and putting the new coat in his requip space, he leaves the station with just the flowers in his hands. He can't help but gasp a little as he sees Magnolia Town for the first time. Magnolia Town is much larger than Clover Town, with many more structures and residents. Although the blonde has never seen so many people in his life, he soon recovers and moves into the actual town. He realizes halfway through his stroll through the town that he has no idea where Fairy Tail is. Fairy Tail. It's in the south of town, close to the coast. If you keep going up this road 2 more kilometers, it's a big building, 3 floors high, and has a sign over the door that says, "Fairy Tail. You can't miss it, kid." The blonde thanks him before moving on. After a half hour of walking, he reaches a big, pyramid-shaped structure that looks like a pagoda. The front doors have an Arabian design, and the sign that reads, "Fairy Tail," is obviously above the doors. After taking a deep breath to calm himself, the blonde pushes open the doors and has to dodge a flying chair right away. He observes that the guild is in disarray as the members are fighting with one another. When he regains his full height, he navigates the chaos, avoiding objects as they approach him, and makes his way directly to the bar. There, he spots a small man sitting on top of the bar, sipping a beer. He is dressed in a blue jacket over a light green tunic-like shirt, blue pants, brown boots, and an odd-looking fuchsia-colored hat. He immediately determines that this is the master of Fairy Tail and his grandfather Makarov Dreyar, after sensing that the man possesses a great deal of suppressed magical power. When he gets to the bar, he clears his throat before saying, "Excuse me sir, but might you be the master of this guild?" Makarov looks up from his beer at the person speaking to him and almost drops it because the boy in front of him is almost exactly like his son, but with shorter hair. He searches the boy's face for what he's looking for. Birthmarks on the cheeks that resemble whiskers, and knows right away that the boy is his grandson. His astonishment lasts only a moment before he straightens his face and puts on his grandfather's kind face. Before responding, he watches as the blonde nods before continuing, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar. I'm your grandson. I would like to join the guild if I can." Gigi. "Why yes, I am, young man. I am Makarov Dreyar, 3rd master of Fairy Tail. What can I do for you?" he asks. All of the mages in the guild can only stare in disbelief at the teen's statement, and the older mages are simply waiting for their master to lose it over this boy's remarks. These words are enough to halt all activity in the guild. Nobody anticipates what happens next, though, as Makarov sets down his beer, jumps off the counter, and heads for the stairs that lead to the 2nd floor. "Follow me, my boy." The blonde follows the little man up the stairs, leaving a group of shocked mages in their wake. After Naruto follows Makarov to his office, a seal that he knows to be a privacy seal activates as soon as the door shuts behind him. Even though he knows he would lose to his grandfather, the blonde gets a little nervous and tense, ready to defend himself if necessary. "No need to get tense, Naru-chan. I know you are who you say," the man says, surprising him by turning around and grinning softly. "Just tell me one thing, my boy. Where have you been all these years? You look so much like your father when he was your age. Even though your hair is much shorter, no other child I've heard of has ever had those birthmarks on your cheeks." With a sigh of relief, the blonde sits down on one of the room's couches and runs his hands through his hair. "Thank you, Ji-chan. For a minute there I thought you didn't believe me and I was going to have to fight you to answer your question. That's a long story and I'd rather tell it with the whole family present if you don't mind." The man with white hair nods his head. "I completely understand, Naruto-chan. Your parents aren't here right now. Your father is out on an S-class mission with your godfather and the guild's ace Gildarts Clive, while your mother is on an A-class mission with your cousin Laxus, helping him gain more experience as a mage. However, they should all be returning in a couple of hours. Minato-chan and Gildarts left 2 days ago, and between the two of them the job should be done by now. As for your mother and Laxus, their job was only 3 towns over and they left this morning, so they should be finished already. The blonde is somewhat deflated by this and lets out his breath. Man, I was hoping that they'd be here when I arrived. Oh well, I guess I can wait a few hours to see them. I mean, I've gone 13 years without seeing or knowing them. What's a few hours more? In the meantime, I'd really like to get to know Yuji-chan. At this, the old master nods his head and smiles. Makarov tells his grandson about his early years as the two Drayar men spend the next few hours sitting in the office getting to know one another a little better. He tells the young blonde that he is a part of a long fairy tale tradition because his father, the boy's great-grandfather, was one of the company's founders, which piques the boy's interest. When the boy asks about his grandmother, the man replies that they are not married but are still very close. The 13-year-old is a little taken aback by the question. I hope you don't mind my asking, Naruto-chan, but what kind of magic do you use? But before he can respond, there is a knock on the door, so the elderly wizard saint gets up to answer it. About 2 hours into the conversation, he realizes that he has yet to learn what kind of magic his grandson uses. Minato, Gildarts, Kushina, and 16-year-old Laxus Drayar are standing there when Makarov opens the door. He gestures for them to come in, then shuts the door and re-engages the privacy seals. The 4 mages are taken aback by this action, but as the elderly man speaks to them all, Minato and Gildarts immediately spot the teenage boy seated on one of the couches. Though he has a few lines on his face that indicate he has aged, Minato Drayar hasn't changed much since X764. His hair is still spiky and has jaw-length bangs, and he has a small goatee on his chin. His clothes have also changed. He now sports a brand new white coat with fur lining the collar and a wave pattern around the hem, long black pants with green wind patterns around the legs, and a long-sleeved black sweatshirt with yellow lightning patterns around the wrists. The kanji for Fairy Tale's Yellow Flash is printed on the back of his jacket. Despite being 34, Kushina Uzumaki Drayar still has the appearance of a woman in her 20s. Her violet eyes have a little less sparkle, but her long red hair is still as vivid as ever. Even though it's currently pulled back in a high ponytail, she is currently dressed in her job attire, which is similar to her husband's, with the exception that her utility vest is dark green, her shirt is short-sleeved, and her pants only reach her calves. Her coat, which is deep red and features the kanji for Fairy Tale's Queen of Blades on the back, is lined with fur. At 6 feet tall and 145 pounds, Laxus Drayar is the quintessential adolescent. He has orange eyes and spiky blonde hair with multiple bangs over his forehead, which is typical of the Drayar family. However, there is a scar in the shape of a lightning bolt over his right eye. Laxus is dressed in dark green pants, black shoes, and a brown t-shirt over a black sweater. He is wearing a pair of magic headphones over his ears. He leads the 3 named individuals around to the front of the couch where Naruto is sitting and gestures to the boy, saying, I present to you Naruto Uzumaki Drayar. Naruto-chan has come home, my children. The 13-year-old gets up and discovers that he is only marginally shorter than his cousin Laxus. Welcome back everyone. I'm sure that your jobs were huge successes, but we can discuss that later. Minato and Kushina are stunned as they quickly survey the young man in front of them, taking in every inch of his body, but they both swiftly focus on the same spot, the old man's cheek whisker lines. That revealed it. With trembling steps, Kushina approaches him and lifts her hands to rub his whiskers and place them on his cheeks. The younger blonde responds, yeah, it's really me, Ka-chan. I'm here. I'm real. I've missed you, Ka-chan. I have something for you. He moves away from the red-haired woman and stoops slightly to pick up the bouquet of flowers from the table and extends them to her. It's really you, isn't it? You're really Naru-chan, my baby? She lets out a little gasp because Casablanca lilies are her favorite. She accepts them and then gives him a strong embrace while sobbing joyfully into his shirt. Thank you, Sochi. Thank you so much. They're beautiful. I'm so happy to have you back, to hold you in my arms, my little baby. At this point, Minato approaches Naruto and ruffles his hair. Your mother is right, son. It's great to have you back. You have no idea how long your mother and I have searched all over Earthland for you, so to have you show up here at Fairy Tale of all places is a surprise, but a good one. You don't look exactly like I remember you. I remember your hair being exactly like mine, just without my bangs. I can only think of one thing to say to sum up how your mother and I feel, and here it is. Welcome back, Naruto. The 13-year-old starts crying for the first time in his life, but it's happy tears. The love he feels from his parents and grandfather, as the man grows larger and envelops them all in a bear hug, is too much for him. The family breaks off their embrace as Naruto wipes away his tears. Thank you. Thank you all so much for accepting me, and for genuinely loving me. Even though I've been missing for nearly 13 years, you have no idea what this means to me. Minato simply smiles and gives him a shoulder pat before saying, "Of course we love and accept you, Naruto-chan. We're your family, and that's what families do now. Say hi to your cousin Laxus. He's son of Ivan." "Hey cousin, it's nice to meet you. I'm Naruto, as you already know, 13 and a half, and I like ramen, training, learning new seals and runes, and my friends. I dislike bullies, people who put down seal and rune magic, and anyone who messes with my friends. How about you?" Naruto responds when Laxus holds out his hand for a handshake, taking him by the forearm. "Yeah, nice to meet you again, little cousin," Laxus says, a little taken aback by this introduction before he regains his composure and grabs the younger teen's forearm as well. "I don't have a favorite food, and my only real dislike is weakness, because I used to be sickly and weak." Laxus is 16 years old, enjoys rock music, training, and spending time with Minato Ojasan. In response, the younger blonde nods, and the two simply smirk at each other while releasing each other's forearms. Next up is Gildarts, and if Naruto had to sum up his godfather in a single word, it would be enormous. Gildarts Clive is a 38-year-old man with shoulder-length orange hair that has been slicked back and a scruffy beard, standing at least 6 feet 4. He is even taller than Minato and has a lot of muscle. He wears a long, black cloak with shoulder plates that is tattered and has a high collar. He also has a simple belt around his waist. Gildarts also don loose-fitting dark pants, which are tucked inside plain boots and have an armored waist guard with plates that resemble those on his shoulders. The man approaches and gives him a shoulder pat, but the force of that one motion almost knocks him to the ground. "It's nice to finally meet you, kiddo. You know, when your old man told me he wanted me to be your godfather before you were born, I was iffy about it at first, but then I thought what the heck and said yes. However, before I ever got to meet you, a dragon attacked, you went missing, and your parents here went into comas for 9 years. But hey, what you gonna do, right? I look forward to getting to know you now that you're back." Before addressing the elephant in the room, the elderly man breaks up the reunion by clearing his throat, drawing everyone's attention and bringing up a topic from earlier in Makarov's mind. "Speaking of going missing, Naruto-chan, now that your parents, godfather, and cousin are here, I believe it's time you tell everyone where you have been the past 13 years. We would all very much like to hear about the life you've had up till now, and about the person who raised you." As Laxus approaches, leans against a wall, and crosses his arms in front of his chest, Minato, Kushina, and Gildarts all nod their heads in agreement. Gildarts sits on the edge of Makarov's desk, his parents sit on either side of him, and the youngest blonde sighs before settling into the couch. Everyone in the room is shocked when Naruto says, "Well, to answer your questions, Ji-chan, for the last 13 years I've lived in the mountains nearest Clover Town. That's also where I learned the main type of magic that I use, God-Slayer magic, Metsujin Maho." Minato and Kushina are shocked because they never suspected their son's closeness for so long. Makarov is taken aback since he has heard of God-Slayer magic, which is a powerful lost magic. Rosuto Magiku. Laxus is shocked that there is another kind of Slayer magic out there, and Gildarts is shocked because he has never even heard of it before. In fact, he had never heard of Dragon Slayer magic, Metsuryu Maho, until today. Kushina rises from her stupor to inquire, "You've lived near Clover Town all of these years and yet no one ever saw you, Sochi? And how did you learn God Slayer magic?" Naruto nods his head in response. "Yeah, number one ever saw me because I didn't start actually going into Clover Town till I was 10, and when I did I put up a transformation to change my hair and eye color, and hide my whisker marks. For the first 2 years I went into town, everyone knew me as Arashi Namikaze." This makes Minato giggle and say, "That's ingenious, son. If no one in Clover Town could connect you to me and your mother, then they would never be able to report your location to us. Did your caretaker come up with that?" The younger blonde nods and responds, "He did, but it didn't matter. I revealed myself a year and a half ago to all my friends and their families. They wanted to report back to you back then, but I convinced them not to as I hadn't finished my God Slayer training yet." "You said, he? That means your caretaker was a man. Did he teach you your God Slayer magic, Naruto-chan?" Makarov asks, bringing the conversation back to the subject. The older blonde nods. "Yeah, but he wasn't a man, at least not a human man. My teacher and adoptive father, the one who taught me God Slayer magic, was the god Zarok. He was good to me all these years, even telling me about all of you when I was 7. He knew you had a family who loved you and were worried sick looking for you, and he still kept you. What kind of god is that? To keep a child from his rightful parents? I'll find this Zarok and rip him apart for keeping my baby from me." Kushina becomes enraged. Her hair starts to swing wildly behind her like 9 tails, and her magic spikes and becomes visible as her anger increases. However, everything stops when Naruto puts his hands over hers and looks at her pleadingly. "Please don't be upset, Ka-chan. And don't hold Xerox-2-san responsible for keeping me away from you. I told him that I wanted to stay and complete my training so that I could become a true god slayer, but he offered me the option to stop right there and bring me here to Ji-chan. However, Yuan Tu-chan encouraged me to pursue my interests in swordsmanship, rune magic, and seal magic. Therefore, be angry with me if you want to be angry with anyone. You win, Sochi, but know that no matter what I could never blame you for your decisions, the redhead says, kissing his forehead as she nods her head in response to her son's words, and the look in his eyes. Naruto nods and gives his red-haired mother a grateful hug. There may be times in the future when I may be angry with you for things, but know that no matter how angry I get with you, I will always love you. So your childhood was good then? Minato asks, clearing his throat to get their attention before continuing. Did you spend all of your time with the god who reared you, or did you make any friends your own age? The younger blonde smiles broadly and starts telling him about his friends in Clover Town, expressing gratitude to his father for shifting the topic. When he tells them about his Ayame Nichan and how she first introduced him to the food of the gods, ramen, Kushina and Minato are both shocked to learn that he is friends with the children of Shikaku Nara, Inoichi Yamanaka, Shoza Akamichi, and Mebuki Haruno. After he describes his relationships with all of his friends and hears about the two girls' behavior over the past year, Kushina asks if he was dating either of them. When he says no, she dances inwardly with delight that her Sochi hasn't yet discovered his type of girls. After Laxus and Gildarts eventually leave the room to hang around the guild, Makarov chooses to address Naruto's initial motivation for joining the guild. Now, Naruto-chan, you mentioned that you wanted to join the guild, and since you're my grandson and appear to be a powerful mage, I accept your application. But just so I can record it for the guild's records, could you tell me all the magics you can use? Well, my primary magic is Storm God Slayer magic, Arashi no Metsujin Maho. But I also know Lightning God Slayer magic, Kaminari no Metsujin Maho, Wind God Slayer magic, Fujin no Metsujin Maho, and Water God Slayer magic, Sujin no Metsujin Maho. The 13-year-old blonde nods in response. However, is it possible for you to conceal my Storm God Slayer magic? Even though their eyes widen in shock at him knowing 4 different kinds of God Slayer magic, all 3 nod in agreement. I don't want anyone to know about that till I'm ready. I can also use the regular elements of the last 3, which are Lightning magic, Kaminari ke Kakushu Maho, Wind magic, Kei's Maho, and Water magic, Mizu ke Kakushu Maho, he says, laughing at their expressions. In addition, I can use some Requip magic, Konso Maho, and am proficient in Seal magic, Shiru Maho, and Rune magic, Rune Maho. Xerox-2-san claims that although I've never learned them, I also have a slight affinity for light magic, Hikari no Maho, and chain magic, Rensa Maho. Yes, and I am familiar with the fundamentals of transformation magic. Makarov coughs into his hand to draw attention to himself, saying, I know a thing or two about light magic, and I would be very happy to teach you what I know. Kushina smiles at hearing that the teen has the ability to learn chain magic and remarks, I can teach you chain magic if you want, Naru-chan. The blonde nods his head in acceptance and happiness to her offer. All 3 of the older mages are impressed and proud of the teen's vast array of magical abilities. I would impart some of my knowledge to at least one of my grandsons. After getting up from the couch, Naruto approaches Makarov and gives him a hug. Thank you, Ji-chan, that would be great, he says. The oldest Drayar gives him a back pat before saying, think nothing of it, Naruto-chan. Now, where and what color do you want your guild mark to be? After giving it some thought, the 13-year-old says, I'll take it right here over my heart, so that I'll always keep the guild, my comrades, and my family close to my heart and make it cover the whole pec, as he lifts up his shirt and points to his left pectoral regarding the hues of orange with a black border. The 4 dryers get up and leave the office to introduce Naruto to the rest of the guild and announce his membership after the old man nods and applies the guild stamp, leaving a fairy tale symbol covering his entire left chest area. Makarov tells everyone who the younger blonde is before announcing that he has joined the guild, which prompts the guild to throw a party in honor of their master's returned grandson and newest member. However, Naruto goes to meet every younger member of the guild who is closest to his age. He introduces himself appropriately, and they all do the same. The first person he meets is Grey Fullbuster, an 11-year-old boy with spiky black hair who uses ice make magic, Isu Maiku Maho, and appears to have a stripping habit because he is only wearing boxers. The next person he meets is Kana Alberona, an 11-year-old girl with brown eyes, wavy brown hair, and a ponytail. She has been in the guild for 5 years, making her the oldest member of the group. She wears an orange dress with lines that divide it, giving the impression that it is made of blocks, and she uses card magic, Magiku Kato, a holder type magic, Haruta Magiku. that uses magic cards for a variety of effects. He then encounters Levi Magarden, a 10-year-old girl with hazel eyes and blue hair that reaches her shoulders. She has only been in the guild for a few months and is dressed in a yellow shirt without sleeves, a red skirt, and a red lining down the middle of the shirt and around the hem. Levi uses solid script, Sorido Sukuriputo, a caster-type magic, Kyasuda Magiku, that entails writing words in the air and solidifying them in their represented form. For example, writing fire in fire before throwing them at the adversary. The next person he encounters is a 10-year-old boy with black eyes and spiky pink hair. He is also extremely hyperactive and attempted to attack Naruto at first, but the 13-year-old quickly put him down. His name is Natsu Dragneel, and he recently joined the guild today. He wears a long-sleeved, button-up red shirt, tan pants, and plum-colored boots. He has a scaled scarf around his neck and a yellow sash around his waist. Natsu Slayer Magic, Hano no Metsuryu. Igneel, his adoptive father, who vanished this morning. Urza Scarlet, a 12-year-old girl with brown eyes and long red hair that is a shade darker than his mother's and tied in a braided ponytail, is the last person he remembers seeing. She has been a member of the guild for a year and is dressed in a knee-length dress with a red tie at the neck, long blue pants underneath the dress, and brown boots. What's strange about Urza is that she wears armor that covers her shoulders, chest, and back. A brown belt around her waist loops twice, and a sword strapped to her left hip. Urza is a student of Naruto's mother Kushina in both magic and swordsmanship. The reason the younger redhead is being taught by the older one is that Urza uses requip magic, just like Kushina, but her magic is called the Night Za Naito, which enables a person to store armor and weapons in pocket dimensions and summon them during combat. Urza initially began to call him Naruto Dono and bowed to him after learning that the blonde was her teacher's son, but he stopped her and told her to just call him Naruto or even Naruto-kun if she so desired, because she was his Kasen's student and that made her feel like his little sister. As a result, the 12-year-old began calling him Naruto ni. At some point, his father introduced him to the generation immediately above him. He met Mikao Kanbolt, who uses a kind of fire magic called Purple Flare, Paparu Fareya, and Wakaba Mine, Mikao's best friend and rival who smokes a pipe and uses smoke magic, Kemari Maho. He also discovered that his godfather uses crash magic, Karashu, and disassembly magic, Pumkai. His mother and father took him out of the guild that evening after a long afternoon of getting to know his fellow mages and the guild's layout. Minato and Kushina's home is 2 stories high and made of brick, and as soon as the 3 of them enter, the elder dryers turn to their son and say, "Welcome home, Naru-chan." The adolescent surveys his surroundings and discovers that the living room, with its blue couches and chairs and brown wood coffee and end tables, is to the left of the entryway. Minato and Kushina lead Naruto upstairs, showing him that there are several rooms up here. The first room they show him is the library, where they have a variety of books, both ordinary and magical. Next, they show him their room, the master bedroom, which has a king-sized bed, a large closet, and an attached bathroom on the right. Along the wall are the stairs to the upper level, and the room off the stairs is what appears to be the dining room, with a large table and many chairs. Finally, they reach what they consider to be the most significant room of all, Naruto's bedroom. The teen opens the door and enters the room, which is decorated with reds, yellows, and even dark oranges. Along the walls a queen-sized bed covered in dark orange blankets and sheets, with numerous stuffed animals on the pillows, is located on one side of the room, along with a door leading to his closet, a dark wood desk and chair, a bookcase next to the desk, and a few feet away is another door leading to his own attached bathroom. Kushina approaches and touches his arm, saying, "That was your favorite toy when you were a baby." The blonde teenager approaches his bed slowly, picks up one of the stuffed animals, a big orange fox with 9 tails, and looks at it with a look of recognition. "You gave him the name Kurama when you first began to speak more than baby jargon. You couldn't sleep without him because you loved him so much." "I don't know what to say," Naruto says, putting down the plush fox and giving his mother another hug. The room, the house, everything is fantastic. The opportunity to truly get to know you too, Ji-chan, Laxus, and even my goofy godfather makes me happy. When the older Dreyar brother is mentioned, both of their smiles fade. The younger blonde becomes anxious and asks, "Did I say something wrong? Ka-chan? Tu-chan? Hell, I can't wait to meet Ivan Oji-san." "No, it's just that Ivan Oni-san is a sore subject." Minato sighs and runs his hands through his hair. "The main reason why my brother and I don't get along is because he believes that I stole all of his thunder when we were kids. In addition, I've never agreed with a lot of his life choices, particularly those involving your cousin. Despite the fact that he is still my brother and I still love him, all of that has served to distance us. Do me a favor, son, and avoid Ivan for the time being." In response, Naruto nods his head, but he's smart enough to inquire, "How does Ivan Oji look?" The reed-haired mother says, "You can't miss him. He's the only one in the guild taller and bulkier than Gildart's Baka." The two parents nod in agreement. He speaks with a slight lisp and has black hair, a black beard, and tanned skin. Naruto nods, and the two parents leave the room. "Anyway, no more of that. Why don't you clean up and I'll make us all dinner?" After an hour or so, the small family gathers at the dining room table for dinner, which consists of pork, beef, rice, and a variety of vegetables. As they eat, they converse and learn more about one another. Naruto discovers that his father was one of the youngest S-class members when he was 16. When he asks how they fell in love, his mother is delighted to share the tale, with Minato filling in some of the details. The blonde can't help but smile as he lies in his new bed at the end of the night after everyone has gone to bed, thinking about how wonderful the next few years might be with his family, how lively the guild seems to be, and how he knows he'll fit right in with the rest. His final thought before going to sleep is how excited he is to start his first job as a legal mage. Magnolia Town X 777, August 10th. It has been a little more than a month since Naruto returned to his family and joined the Fairy Tail Guild. During that time, he has gotten to know his parents, cousin, and even his grandparents even better, having met his grandmother the day after he returned. When he first met poor Lyuzuka, his mother insisted that he get checked out to make sure he was in good physical and mental health. She scared him at first, though that might have had more to do with her dragon-like cape and being asked to some brat. She used healing magic to perform various scans, tested his reflexes with a small hammer, checked his heartbeat with a stethoscope, and even drew blood to make sure he had no diseases hiding in his bloodstream. Unbeknownst to Kushina and Naruto, she tested it against the reed head and Minato's blood to confirm he was indeed their son. Her attitude changed, though, when she learned that he was her lost grandson. The 13-year-old began to get to know his Ba-chan after the pink-haired woman gave him a perfect health report after 2 hours of testing, telling him that his weight and height are above average for his age and that he will be taller than her own son. Over the past month, he has also been getting to know all of the younger mages in the guild, learning more about them and sharing more about himself. He discovered that Gray learned his magic from a woman named Milkovich, from whom he also got his stripping habit, and that the woman died defending him from a demon. He also learned from Natsu that the boy had been raised from birth by the dragon who taught him his magic, and that he simply disappeared without saying anything last month on the day they both joined the guild. Kana told him that she came to the guild at 6 to find her father after her mother died and left her a letter telling her that he was a fairy tale mage. When asked who her father was, she refused to answer, but he caught her looking at his godfather Gildarts and was able to piece it together. Levi told him that her parents had died a few months ago and that she had nowhere to go until his grandfather found her and brought her to the guild. However, he spent the most time with Urza, primarily because his mother had decided to teach him chain magic at the same time that she taught the younger red-headed boy requip magic and swordsmanship. The 12-year-old girl was impressed by the blonde's intelligence and magical skills. As she watched him learn the fundamentals of chain magic in just a few days, the two became close through sword sparring, with Naruto demonstrating that his adoptive father did not take his time teaching him the blade. In the second week of his stay, the armored preteen finally opened up to him and shared a little bit of her past with him. She told him that she had been a slave until a year ago, when she met an elderly man named Rob, who had been a fairy tale mage and had taught her about magic. She also told him that the slaves had rebelled against their captors last year, and she had led the uprising. After using her magic to free the remaining captives, she went to find a friend who had previously been taken away, but when she found him, he was different. He had magic, and he blasted her away. She woke up on the shores of Fury and traveled to Fairy Tale after old man Rob sacrificed his life to protect her, which caused her magic to activate for the first time. When she began to cry during her story, the blonde gave her a hug and patted her head, telling her it was okay and that she would never have to experience that again. These actions cemented the red-headed sisterly affection for the older boy, but neither of them realized that Kushina had heard and seen everything and was thrilled to see her son and the girl she saw as a daughter start to develop a sibling relationship. During the month, he also finally got to meet his uncle for the first time a week ago. He had just gotten himself a drink of juice after a strenuous training session with his grandfather in light magic. He didn't pay attention to where he was going and ran straight into Ivan, spilling his drink all over the man's shirt. When he went to apologize, he saw the man's features and knew instantly that it was his uncle, so he stopped mid-sentence. Ivan decided to teach the child a lesson because he didn't like it when a little person spilled their drink on him. He raised his hand, balled it into a fist, and threw it down on the blonde, expecting to send the teen flying. However, what happened next shocked not just Ivan but the entire guild. Sensing his own danger, Naruto lifted his hand and easily caught the incoming fist by the wrist, then reacted as he had been trained, pulling the larger man down closer to him before using his hold as leverage to leap up and plant both of his feet into the man's chest, letting go of his wrist in the process, and sending the man flying back and crashing through a table after his attack. He sighed and turned back to the bar to collect another juice. But Ivan bounced back quickly, getting back to his full height and yelling at the blonde about how dare a nobody little shit like him do something like that to an S-class mage like himself. He raised his hand, ready to use his magic to attack Naruto, but his younger brother Minato Drayar appeared, gripping his wrist and staring at him with a look of rage he had never seen on his face before. Ivan was briefly taken aback when Minato asked him why he was attempting to use magic to attack his son, but he quickly recovered, tore his hand away from his brother's grasp, and claimed that only his children would be so foolish as to attack their superiors. Naruto pointed out that he had attempted to attack himself first and had simply defended himself as he had been taught, and to make matters worse, the blonde concluded, "Not my fault you're so weak that a nearly 14-year-old is strong enough to send you flying through a table, Ivan Ojasan." The majority of the guild, including Kushina and Makarov, laughed at this remark, but Ivan became even more enraged knowing that his younger brother was stronger than him. The man let it go and stomped off, saying over his shoulder, "Watch yourself, nephew, your mommy and daddy won't always be around to protect you." After that, he went up to the second floor, which is only accessible by S-class mages. Minato decided to follow his older brother and have a conversation about his actions. Since then, Naruto has made it a point to stay away from his uncle whenever he is around. However, this is rarely the case because he seems to take S-class jobs all the time, almost as if he doesn't want to be around his fellow fairy tale mages, including his own son when he is around. He treats the rest of the guild with contempt and even calls 16-year-old Laxus weak and a disgrace for not being S-class yet. Our blonde god slayer is currently sitting at the bar in the guild hall with his head resting on the counter, looking bored and irritated. It's easy to see why he's irritated. All you have to do is glance about 100 feet behind him to see Natsu unconscious once more. But the reason for his annoyance is that, despite being a member of the guild for a month, he hasn't yet completed a single job. He was actually planning to take a job the second day he was there, but his parents stopped him. Minato and Kushina haven't wanted him to go out on jobs, saying they need more time to get to know him again, but he believes it's more because they don't want to lose sight of him. Makarov, who is seated in his usual position on the bar, decides to see what he can do to help. After noticing his grandson's expression, he approaches the blonde and places his hand on her shoulder, asking, "What is the matter, Naruto-kun? Let Ji-chan know how he can make you smile once more." With a sigh, Naruto looks at his grandfather, lifts his head off the counter, and responds, "I'm bored, Gigi. Even beating up Natsu has lost its fun. Tell Ka-chan and Tu-chan to let me go on a job if you would like to assist." The teenager says, "I'm going crazy sitting here in the guild, not getting to flex my magic." The elderly wizard saint nods and starts to think of a way to solve his dilemma. Then, he sees his older grandson standing against one of the guild's wooden pillars with his arms crossed and his eyes closed, and he has the ideal idea. "Please come over here, Laxus-kun." The 16-year-old opens his eyes, uncrosses his arms and walks over to the bar. When he gets there, he looks at his grandfather and asks, "What do you need, Gigi?" The eldest Drayar glances at his two grandsons, then nods and says, "Laxus-kun, I'd like you to take Naruto-kun here on a job." The two blondes look at the elderly man in disbelief, but Laxus glances at his cousin and says, "Okay, Gigi." After noticing the boredom in his eyes, "I don't take anything under a class, though, as you are aware, Naruto. Are you cool with that?" "Yeah, I'm good with it." The younger blonde responds with a swift nod. "I'll be able to show off my abilities and stretch my legs. So, big cousin, what were you thinking of?" Laxus walks over to the board looking for a good job. After a few minutes he finds one that's a class and comes back over, showing it to Makarov. "We'll take this one. It's a mission to capture bandits. This kind of thing would normally be C class, but there are rumors that this group is led by some dark mages." The idea of battling some dark mages excites Naruto, but Makarov is hesitant, saying, "Laxus, I don't think this is the right job to start Naruto-kun on." The younger blonde, however, gets up and responds, "It's the perfect job for me to start with, Gigi. Despite the fact that he has no experience and has only been a legal mage for a month, my spells are designed to defeat other mages and are quite destructive." He gives the man his best puppy dog eyes and says, "Besides, I'll have Laxus there to back me up in case things go pear-shaped." The old man sighs and says, "Okay, fine, it's too much for him to handle. But if you get hurt, it's going to be you and Laxus telling your parents why, and I'll deny any knowledge that you went on this mission." The 13-year-old, who is almost 14 years old, leaps with delight, embracing his small grandfather before turning to face Laxus and saying, "Come on, cousin, let's finish this job and move on." Laxus nods in agreement with his cousin's statement, and the two leave the guild together. "The sooner we defeat these bandits and dark mages and return, the sooner I show Ka-chan and Tu-chan that I can take care of myself. Halfway to the train station, Laxus stops Naruto by placing his hand on his shoulder and turning him in his direction. Okay, hold up, little cuz, he says. The younger blonde face palms himself, realizing that he was about to embark on a job where all he knew were the details and not the location, and he nods to his cousin to continue, saying, I think it's a good idea for you to find out where the job is taking place before we get to the train station. The bandits and their mage leaders are in Lupinus Town. Naruto nods in agreement, and the two proceed to the train station. We have to speak with the mayor when we get there. The Dreyar cousins sit in silence for the duration of the journey until Naruto decides to break the silence, saying, Hey Laxus, even though we're cousins, I realize that I don't know all that much about you. About 20 minutes later, the train lurches forward and begins its journey towards Lupinus Town and all the other towns on the route before it. The older adolescent sighs. What do you want to know about me, Naruto? After glancing at his younger cousin with a hint of irritation and noticing that all that is visible in his eyes is genuine curiosity. Well, for starters, you know that I primarily use Godslayer magic, but I have no idea what kind of magic you use, the younger blonde says, grinning honestly before striking a contemplative pose. What sort of magic do you employ, then? I can sense your strength, so it must be strong. Laxus is taken aback by this question because he thought the nearly 14-year-old would ask something foolish, like what he does for fun. He is also taken aback by the boy's ability to sense magic power. After gathering his thoughts, he responds, primarily I use lightning magic, however, I can tell you that I am also capable of using lightning dragon slayer magic. Kaminari no Metsuryu Maho. Because of your family, however, Gigi doesn't want anyone to know about that second one except for family, so you can't tell anyone. So you were taught magic by a dragon at some point, cousin? At first, Naruto is ecstatic to learn that his cousin can use lightning magic like himself. Thinking they can bond more over it, however, he is completely shocked to hear that the older teen can use dragon slayer magic. He can't understand how, unless he was taught by a dragon, why does Gigi want to keep it a secret from everyone but her family? No, I never even met a dragon. Laxus sighs in response to these queries. As someone who acquired their magic by having a dragon lacrima implanted into their body, I am referred to as a second-generation dragon slayer because my father had the lacrima implanted in me without my consent or blessing. The implantation was painful, the magic it produced was wild, and it left me with this scar over my eye. That's why Gigi doesn't want anyone to know about it. This shocks Naruto because during his lessons with Zarok, he had learned about dragons, dragon slayer magic, and lacrima. Zarok had told him that it was possible to gather the magic of dragons, gods, and devils, turn them into a solidified crystalline lacrima, and then implant that lacrima into a person to give them that magic. However, the god had informed Naruto that, to the best of his knowledge, no one who had ever had one of those types of lacrima. In fact, the god himself had 3 of each type in his own requip space. The younger blonde quickly recovers from his shock, though, saying, I see. Imagine the shock of learning that your cousin not only had a dragon lacrima implanted into his body, but also survived it and even learned to use the dragon slayer magic it provides. Laxus nods his head in response, saying, Yeah, I've never in my life seen Gigi as angry as he was the day we came home. I bet Gigi was pissed when he found out what Ivan Ojisan had done to you. However, that day I discovered the precise reason Gigi is regarded as the 5th strongest wizard saint, he says, gaining a distant gaze that combines fear and awe. As the train reaches its planned stop in Onabus Town, the two fall silent once more. 20 minutes later, the train resumes its journey towards Lupinus Town, and when the two cousins are just 30 minutes away from their destination, the elder one speaks up once more, saying, You know, everything I know about lightning magic I learned from Minato Ojisan. I'll watch out for you because your old man is a nice kid, but just so you know, I don't like you because you disrespected my 2-san last week. When Laxus says the final line, Naruto frowns. Look, your old man started the whole thing by trying to attack me just because I spilled some juice on his shirt, Naruto says, initially grinning at the remarks about his father. All I did was defend myself, and then he whined because I took him by surprise and sent him flying. If it weren't for my 2-chan's timely arrival, your old man would have used magic on me. I was well within my rights to do and say what I did. So grow up, Laxus. I mean, you sound childish. You insulted my daddy, so I don't like you. He scoffs at the end. When Laxus's body starts to spark with yellow electricity in rage, Naruto sees this as a challenge and starts to spark with the same kind of electricity. However, Laxus quickly calms down and both of them stop sparking. What would you know? I am now as strong as I am because of my two-san. He cured me of my illness and weakness and gave me the strength to destroy the guild's enemies as well as my own. I am disrespected by anyone who treats him disrespectfully. If someone disregarded the god who reared you, wouldn't you feel the same way? The younger blonde just shakes his head at the older teen's words. Listen to yourself, attributing your strength to your father. Zarok Tu-san taught me that a man must deal with insults and actions to himself on his own and not rely on others to do it for him. So I would never be upset when someone disrespected him. A man must stand on his own 2 feet and face the world head on. Even though Ivan Ojisan provided you with the means to strengthen yourself, it was you who used those means to achieve your current level of strength. Not your father, my father, or even Gigi. The 16-year-old artificial dragon slayer is shocked by the younger boy's remarks, especially their conviction, but he quickly folds his arms across his chest once more, turns his head, and scoffs, saying, "Whatever, I'm done with this conversation." The two then fall silent again, but the younger Drayar has given the older one a lot to ponder. When they eventually arrive at Lupinus Station, they get off the train and walk quietly to the town hall to talk to the mayor. However, a pretty blonde secretary stops them as they approach the man's office and asks, "Excuse me, young men, can I help you with something?" Laxus doesn't say anything, but Naruto smiles and responds, "Yes, we're fairy tale mages. We've come to speak to the mayor about the bandits that have been plaguing your town." The woman instantly gets excited and says, "Oh," after saying, "Give me a moment to let him know that you are here." She stands up and enters the mayor's office. She reappears a few moments later and gestures them inside, saying, "The mayor will see you now." They enter the office and discover that it is your typical politician's office, complete with a wooden desk and 2 chairs in front of it, and behind it, in a large wing-backed chair, is the mayor of Lupinus Town, a tall, thin man with brown eyes, dark brown hair with gray at the temples, a pressed suit, a dark red tie, and a top hat. His name is Mayor Farkas. "You're the mages that Fairy Tail has sent to deal with the bandits and the dark mages who lead them?" Farkas asks. Observing the 2 Fairy Tail mages who have just entered his office, they have similar features, such as blonde spiky hair, similar facial features, and similar builds. "I'm Mayor Farkas, and it's nice to meet you. Not to be impolite, boys, but you seem a bit young for this kind of thing, don't you?" Naruto responds, "I assure you, Mayor-san, we are more qualified to do this job, despite the fact that both blondes are offended by this. My cousin here is 16, and I will turn 14 in 2 months." When Farkas heard the boys' names, his eyes widened in recognition. "I see you are the son of Fairy Tail's Yellow Flash and Queen of Blades. Then, and both of you are the grandsons of the Titan Makarov Drayar. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Drayar, and this guy next to me is Laxus Drayar. I apologize for questioning your strength." Naruto is a little more outspoken about it, saying, "Please Mayor-san, we would appreciate it if you didn't compare us to our family." The two groan inwardly at this, since neither of them really wants to be known because of their family's fame. "Since we are independent men, we would prefer to be recognized for our abilities rather than those of our ancestors. Tell us now about the leaders of the bandits." "The group we need you to beat consists of around 60, and they are led by 2 dark mages named Tanbu and Kanbu, who are brothers," the man says, nodding his head in admiration of the younger boy's determination. "Kanbu employs darkness magic, Yami no Maho, whereas Tanbu employs earth magic. They're based 10 miles away in the forest to the north of us, and they typically come into town once a week to raid us." The two nod in agreement, storing the information for future use. Laxus must, however, ask a question that has been bothering him. "Why did you send this job out to the guilds? I believe this to be the location of a regiment of Rune Knights from Lupinus Town. Why not just let them take care of it? The regiment of Rune Knights in town did try to stop this group the first time they raided us, but Tanbu and Kanbu killed every last one, and told us if we went to the Magic Council for more, they would destroy the town, kill all the men, and sell the women and children off to slavers," Farkas says, looking down sorrowfully. "We'll take care of these bastards, Farkas-san," Naruto says, turning on his heel and making his way to the door as his body starts to emit black electricity in response to the mention of slavery, shocking both Laxus and the mayor. Shrugging his shoulders at the mayor, Laxus turns to follow his cousin. "Come on, Laxus, it's time to show these bandits why Fairy Tail is famous for being the most destructive guild in all of Fury." After leaving Lupinus Town's northern entrance, the 2 Fairy Tail mages start to stroll through the forest. Naruto stops sparking and regains his normal composure, but Laxus can't resist asking, "What was that back there, kid?" The younger blonde closes his eyes and inhales deeply before responding, "I detest slavery and those who enslave others." You totally lost it when the mayor brought up slavery. Every creature has the right to freedom, and those who enslave others are nothing more than bullies. Zarok Tu-san taught me. I'll be damned if I allow anyone else to go through what she did, he said, and someone I've grown close to was once enslaved and was treated worse than dirt. The two fell back into silence and continued traveling to the bandit camp. They eventually arrive at the bandits' camp after more than an hour of walking. From behind a few trees, they can see that it is composed of numerous tents, each of which can accommodate at least 5 bandits. The largest building in the camp is what looks to be an earthen house, which is probably where the Mage brothers live, while most of the camp is occupied with eating, training, and bullshitting. Tonbu and Kanbu are not visible, but they are able to sense their magic within the earthen house. After watching for a while, Laxus devises an attack strategy, but before he can inform Naruto of it, he discovers the blonde is missing. When he searches for the blonde's magical energy, he finds it inside the camp. Looking in the direction of where he senses it, he witnesses the younger blonde eliminating all of the bandits with ease. His actions are like the wind. The elder Dreyar eventually enters the actual camp and approaches his smirking cousin after all 60 bandits have been subdued and restrained. However, before he can address the younger blonde, he must avoid an earth fist and notices that Naruto had to avoid a dark magic beam. The two cousins are standing next to each other when they land from their dodges, and they can see Tonbu and Kanbu, the two dark mages, across the camp wearing a brown shirt, tan pants, and brown combat boots. Tonbu is a tall man with sandy brown hair, brown eyes, and a full beard. Kanbu has darker, buzzed brown hair, no facial hair, a dark purple button-up shirt, black pants, and black boots. He is a little shorter than his brother. Tonbu glances at all of the shackled bandits before turning back to face his brother and the two mages in front of them. Looks like we got a couple of little do-gooder mages here, Kanbu. They took out all our boys. What do you think we should do with them? The younger brother smirks before responding. I say we gut them and hang their corpses in the center of Lupinous Town to show the people what happens when they go around our rules, Tonbu. As the two release their magic, Tonbu's comes off the man in waves of brown, while Kanbu's comes off in waves of purple. The older brother responds with a smirk. Tonbu plays Iron Rock Drill. Tetsu Raku Doriru. As a massive spinning drill of rock as hard as iron emerges from the ground and makes its way directly toward Laxus, 2 magic circles, one brown and the other purple, appear in front of each man as he unleashes a massive wave of dark energy at Naruto. Kanbu exclaims, Dark Wave, Daku Vevu. When a big yellow magic circle materializes in front of Laxus, he exclaims, Lightning Beam. Kaminari Bimu. As a medium-sized lightning beam emerges from the seal and collides with the rock drill directly, causing the two attacks to collide and explode. The two Dreyar boys then gather their own magic as a dark yellow magic circle with black outlines appears in front of him. Naruto assumes a horse stance, inhales deeply, and accumulates black lightning in his mouth before releasing his spell, Lightning God's Bellow. Kaminari no Dogo. The massive beam of blackish-yellow lightning that the blonde god slayer unleashes completely overwhelms the wave of darkness and moves on to the two dark mages. The attack hits their earthen house with a huge boom, destroying it entirely, forcing Tonbu and Kanbu to separate by avoiding in different directions. The destructive power of the younger blonde's spell completely astounds Laxus and the two brothers. What the fuck was that? I ain't never heard of black lightning before. What the fuck are you, kid? Kanbu asks his opponent, his eyes full of anger and fear. The younger blonde merely smirks and starts to spark with regular yellow lightning before responding. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar. I'm a godslayer, but you can call me Fairy Tail's Godslayer. And I'm the guy who's going to kick your ass and send you to prison. As he takes off, he closes the distance between them in a matter of seconds, and lands a right hook to Kanbu's face, sending him flying into a tree. When Tonbu witnesses his brother being struck so easily, he becomes enraged and ignores Laxus in favor of attacking the younger blonde from behind. The older blonde makes him pay for it by kicking the bigger brother in the stomach, bending him in half, and sending him flying through 3 trees. He appears out of a bolt of lightning. You didn't forget about me, did you, big fella? Your opponent is me. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Laxus Dreyar, Fairy Tail's Lightning King, and I'm going to be handing you your ass today. Returning to his position with Naruto and Kanbu, the older mage glares at the young upstart, conjures up his magic, and wraps his fists in darkness magic before hurriedly approaching the blonde with the intention of hand-to-hand combat, uttering, Dark Fists. Daku Ken, however, the blonde encases his fists in lightning and confronts him head-on while yelling, Lightning Fists. Kaminari Ken. As their fists collide, a shockwave is created, but they soon start exchanging punches at a high speed, sending sparks of lightning and darkness flying everywhere. When the 16-year-old blonde is back with Laxus and Tonbu, the older brother keeps casting earth spells at him, but the teen just keeps dodging them with lightning body, Kaminari Tai. or hitting them with his own lightning spells. The fairy tale mage's strategies start to irritate the dark mage, so he decides to take a more direct approach and calls forth a big brown magic circle beneath himself. When he sees this, Laxus decides to end the fight there. He rushes toward the man and punches him in the face with his lightning form, but it doesn't work as well as it should, only sending the man 10 feet back and injuring the blonde's hand. As the man throws his own punch at Laxus, sending him flying, Tanbu chuckles and says, "Ha ha ha, what's wrong, punk? Did you injure your hand on my face? I'm afraid it's a byproduct of my iron rock armor. Tetsu Raku Yoroi. It increases my defense and my offense." Laxus flips and lands on his feet, spitting out some blood. As Naruto and Kanbu's battle of the fists and feet comes to an end, the blonde who has been steadily gaining speed throughout their altercation is the one with the advantage. Not the older mage in a fit of rage. Kanbu throws a punch that the blonde avoids, allowing him to enter his personal space and unleash a barrage of electrified punches that electrocute him. He finishes it by striking the man's head with a double axe handle, sending him face first into the ground and creating a crater. The younger blonde maintains his defense by leaping back from his opponent. It's a good thing he does, because the man rises from the ground with a look of pure rage and hatred in his eyes, his face bloody and singed. His body erupts in purple energy as he exclaims, You little bastard, I'll show you. I'll teach you what it means to fuck with those stronger than you, die. This is a spell taught to me by our former master. It's different from his but just as powerful. Eat it. Dead wave. Dedo vevu. He says, directing a larger wave of dark energy at the 13-year-old that splits everything in its path, including the ground itself, as he extends his left hand, gathering a huge amount of dark energy, and a huge purple magic seal appears in front of him. When Naruto notices an impending attack, he uses requip and calls forth his magic pen. He draws a seal in the air with the magic pen, finishing it just in time to shout, Seal magic. Light barrier. Shiru Maho. Hikari barrier. As the blonde is surrounded by a barrier of light that blocks the wave of dark energy, the older mage is startled to discover that the blonde is unharmed and still standing in the same location after the attack has subsided. The older blonde is starting to lose patience with Laxus and Tanbu because he can only avoid the older mage's blows and none of his attacks are really hurting the man. Laxus finally has enough and decides to stop the fight after avoiding more kicks and gaining some distance from Tanbu. He raises his fist in the air, conjuring a huge yellow magic circle, and says to the man, "Well, this has been boring. I'm tired of screwing around with you, so I'm going to test this new spell I learned recently on you." His body erupts into even more lightning. With a smug grin, the man with brown hair responds, "Bring it on, punk. I'll take your best spell head on and then break you in half." While taking a firm stance and crossing his arms, resounding through the air, the roar of thunder, plunge from the heavens and reap destruction. Raging Bolt. Rijingu Boruto. Is chanted by the blonde after he smirks. Tanbu is surrounded by a blast of electricity as a massive bolt of lightning descends from the sky. Tanbu is seen lying flat on the ground, unconscious and completely burned, but still alive, as the attack comes to an end. As he locates a tree stump and sits down to rest, Laxus exhales with relief, saying, "Good, that took a lot out of me. If he'd still been standing after it, I would have had a much harder time beating him. Now I just gotta wait for my snot-nosed cousin to finish up with the younger brother." The youngest Drayar, who is back with Naruto, lets down his barrier and exhales with relief that it held. "Sai, looks like we have to end it here. My cousin just beat your brother and he tends to get cranky when he's made to wait, so the next attack will be the last. But this fight was fun. If you ever escape prison, look me up and I'll fight you again." He raises his right hand into the air and collects a mixture of black and yellow lightning, forming a ball of electricity that grows bigger and bigger until it resembles a massive meteorite. He cocks his hand back to toss it while uttering, "Lightning God's Bomb. Kaminari no Bakuden." The dark mage tries to defend himself by calling forth a wall of darkness, but the lightning ball easily penetrates it, striking him and exploding with a loud bzzzt. When the electricity stops, Kanbu is seen lying on his back on the ground, completely unconscious, fried, and still sparking with lightning energy. He twitches to indicate that he is still alive. The 13-year-old blonde claps his hands together to indicate that he has finished tying Kanbu up and slugging him over his shoulder before placing him next to his bound brother Tanbu. "Well, that's that. I'd say my first mission is a huge success, wouldn't you, Sparky?" Naruto asks, grinning at Laxus. Laxus pulls out a lacrima to summon the Rune Knights while growling at his younger cousin without saying anything. The Rune Knights capture unit, under the command of Hiyashi Hyuga, arrives 2 hours later. "You have our deepest thanks for your fine work today, boys. With those two captured, Lupinus Town can receive a new regiment of knights and sleep peacefully at night. You are both credits to your family. And Naruto, I am sure your parents will be proud of your accomplishments here. Good day, boys." the head of the Hyuga clan, approaches the two Dreyar boys and nods. The boys then head back to Lupinus Town after the Rune Knights remove the dark mages and the bandits. When they tell the mayor that the work is finished, he gives them his payment of 700,000 jewels and expresses gratitude that afternoon. The boys take the first train back to Magnolia Town, leaving behind a contented town and unintentionally gaining a title from Lupinus Town. The two were dubbed Fairy Tale's Lightning Brothers, Firi Tiru's Kaminari Kyodai, by the locals after they noticed all the lightning being thrown around the town. The two parents let Naruto have it, telling him how stupid it was to go on an A-class job without telling them or getting their permission, and when he pointed out that the job was easy and that neither he nor Laxus suffered any damage whatsoever, they pointed out that Laxus wasn't their son and was almost S-class, while he was not, and that if something happened to him they wouldn't know what to do. When they returned to the guild, they discovered an irate Minato and Kushina, which made Laxus go elsewhere because he didn't want to be in the middle of the impending storm. The youngest Dreyar then reminded them that he was trained by a god and that defeating 60 bandits and 2 dark mages was easier than his adopted father's slave driver training. He also told them that he had been bored sitting around the guild doing nothing but training and beating up Natsu and that he would need to get out there and do jobs and gain experience if he wanted to be as strong as them someday. Finally, he told them that he was almost 14 years old, that he wasn't a baby, that he didn't need their protection, and that he could handle himself, just like he had been doing since he was 7 years old, before storming out the guild's back door. Kushina wanted to follow him, but Minato stopped her and let Urza go out to try to calm her Oni-san down. After everyone calmed down, Minato and Kushina realized they were being overly protective and a little childish, and they apologized to their son Naruto, on the other hand, realized that they were just acting like parents and trying to watch out for him, and he apologized for sneaking off to do a job without telling them. From that day on, the Dreyar parents stopped being so protective of Naruto, sometimes bringing Urza, Kana, and even Gray along. The guild threw a huge party for Naruto's 14th birthday on October 10th of that year, inviting his friends from Clover Town to join in the celebration. However, like any fairy tale party, the party turned into a violent altercation in which Shikaku, Choza, and Inoichi all got involved. Makarov had to grow to a height of 12 feet and use his magic to break up the fight, even physically separating Choza and Gildarts as they fought over a piece of meat. Ultimately, Naruto had a great time and could finally say he understood what it was like to have a family. Magnolia Town, June 12, X 778. The guild members are drinking, laughing, and talking as usual at Fairy Tale. But right now the older and younger mages are watching the customary argument between the armored red-haired 13-year-old Requip mage Urza Scarlet and one of their newest members, a 13-year-old girl named Mirajane Strauss, who has white hair and blue eyes. Today is just like any other day in Magnolia Town, bright and sunny, with everyone going about their daily lives. Mirajane Strauss, a 13-year-old girl with blue eyes and long white hair tied up in a ponytail with a purple ribbon featuring a skull, wears a purple tube top that accentuates her toned stomach, blue short shorts, thigh-high black boots, and a black choker around her neck. She uses a special brand of takeover magic, Teiku Oba, called Satan Soul, Satan Soru, which enables her to assume the forms of demons and use their powers. Similar to his older sister, Elfman Strauss uses takeover magic, but his brand is called Beast Soul, Basuto Soru, which enables him to record a monster or, in his case, a monster's body part he has touched and either take their form or summon that part to his own arm. Elfman Strauss is 12 years old, tall and large for his age, with short, messy white hair, dark blue eyes, and a full dark blue suit, white button-up undershirt, and black dress shoes. Lysana Strauss is 11 years old, average height for her age, has white hair cut in a Heim style like her siblings, and blue eyes like her sister. She wears red shoes and a pink button-up dress that falls just below her thighs like her siblings. Lysana uses a brand of takeover called Animal Soul, Animaru Soru, which, as the name implies, enables her to change parts of her body into animal parts or her entire body into the specific animal. After their parents passed away, the Strauss siblings joined the guild in May. In order to earn money to support her siblings, Mira took a job at a church exorcising a demon, but after finishing the job, she discovered that her entire right arm had turned demonic and would not go back. This alarmed the villagers, who drove the 3 of them out of town. They then traveled to Fairy Tale, where Makarov informed her of her magic, but she felt like a monster and was prepared to abandon her siblings with the guild. The 13-year-old was about to decide what to do when Elfman and Lysana emerged from the guild and showed her that they had learned takeover magic from Makarov, so she didn't have to be alone. However, before she could do so, Naruto stopped her. The blonde told her that simply because she could take the parts and forms of demons didn't make her a monster, but that what would truly make her a monster is leaving her siblings when they needed her the most. Her decision to stay was prompted by this, and the three were dubbed the Takeover Siblings by the guild. However, that day also had the unintended consequence of making the oldest Strauss sibling develop a crush on the blonde god slayer, who she now flirts with whenever she can. The first time she did this, Urza reacted negatively, calling her a skank who should avoid her Oni-san. This sparked the rivalry between the girls that continues to this day. Months later, the blonde god slayer, who is indirectly responsible for this new round of arguments, can only sit at the bar, sipping his juice, and shaking his head as the two butt heads lock hands, trying to push each other back and fighting for dominance. They start glowing red, Urza, and purple, Mirajane, respectively, and they start insulting each other. He turns to his laughing father and speaks to the man. "Tu-san, why don't you break up the fight between Urza Imoto and Mirajane-san instead of just sitting there and laughing about it?" The former wizard saint simply shakes his head at his son's inability to recognize Myra's feelings for him and responds, "That's not a good idea, son. I mean, they're fighting about nothing. Women fighting should never be witnessed because it will cause unimaginable suffering. Everyone will be satisfied if you just let them fight and get it out of their systems. Additionally, you don't fully comprehend their motivation just yet." Kushina can be heard cheering for the younger red-haired girl to kick the white-haired girl's ass, while Lysana can be heard trying to get her sister to stop fighting with Urza and get along. The older blonde simply chuckles at the boy's response and keeps watching the fight between his surrogate daughter and the girl he believes will eventually be his daughter-in-law. The younger blonde simply looks at his father in bewilderment, then shrugs his shoulders and returns to his drink. This younger generation is quite lively. That's good, Makarov muses to himself as he sits on the bar grinning. Both the guild and the fairy tale spirit will be passed down to the following generation by them. I believe it will soon be time for me to step down as master and hand the title over to a younger person, but who should that be? Well, I'll keep an eye on all of my kids for the time being and see what the future brings. I can deal with that later. Magnolia Town, March 15th, X782. Naruto, 18 years old. In the 5 years since he rejoined the Fairy Tail Guild and reunited with his family, Naruto Uzumaki Drayar has grown close to all of the younger mages, treating them as if they were his siblings. Gray, Natsu, and Elfman all refer to him as Naruto Nisan, while the others primarily call him Aniki. The only exceptions to this rule are Mira and Urza, where the red-haired girl calls him Onisan, and the white-haired girl calls him Naruto-kun. First and foremost, Naruto's appearance has changed over the past 5 years. At 18, he is now at his full adult height of 6 feet 2, just an inch shorter than Laxus, 6 feet 3, and an inch taller than his father, 6 feet 1. He weighs 190 pounds, and as Mira is known to swoon over, it's all muscle. His current attire consists of a dark orange tank top with a storm image on the front, dark blue jeans tucked into black combat boots, a gray utility vest that he leaves unzipped over the tank top, a gray coat with black fur lining the collar, and a triangular formation of his elements on the back. The kanji for Fairy Tale's God Slayer, Firi Tiru's Gado Saraya, is shown below. The moniker was given to him last January after he went on a mission and used 2 of his 4 elemental God Slayer magics. In addition, Naruto has acquired a new God Slayer element, Ice, Kori Maho, and Snow magics, Yuki Maho, in the past few years from a book Zarok gave him the day before he returned to his family. He learned his most recent God Slayer magic, which is Ice God Slayer magic, Kori no Metsujin Maho, which is the portion of Storm's Zarok left out. Naruto has worked at a lot of jobs over the years, earning a lot of money, and now he lives in the Fairy Lake Male Dorm, which is located west of the guild and just off the lake. He paid to have it rebuilt after Natsu destroyed it, and he has the most rooms at 7, so it's like a penthouse apartment, and it costs him 700,000 jewels a month. Another change is that the blonde is now an S-class mage of the guild, tying his father for the record and becoming the last Drayar to become S-class, as Laxus had done so in X778 at the age of 17. However, Naruto and Minato's record was broken 2 years ago when Urza, now known as Titania, became an S-class mage. Mirajane, also known as the Demon, has been the only other person to become S-class in the last 5 years. She has teamed up with Naruto frequently, and her feelings for him have grown stronger over the years. The only difference now is that whenever she flirts with the blonde, he knows it and flirts back with her, making her blush and stutter a lot around him. The 2 men, Kakashi Hitaki and Obito Uchiha, who were once students of Minato Drayar, joined Fairy Tail in X779 after leaving their respective guilds, Quattro Cerberus and Blue Pegasus, so they could see their teacher again and fight alongside him. Since Quattro Cerberus and Blue Pegasus are run by Makarov's friends and former teammates, Makarov permitted them to maintain their status within Fairy Tail. However, they're in the same generation as Mikao and Wakaba. Another thing that has changed over the past 5 years is that in X779, Makarov excommunicated his oldest son Ivan for crimes against the guild. This action caused a rift between Laxus and the rest of his family because the 18-year-old begged the old man to reinstate his father, and when he refused, he went to his uncle to have him persuade the master to bring Ivan back when Minato told him that he couldn't do that and that Ivan deserved his fate, which infuriated the young man and he essentially abandoned his family. Other changes over the years include Ayame Ichiraku moving to Magnolia Town in X780 and opening another location of Ichiraku Ramen, which Naruto frequently visits, and Sakura joining Magnolia Hospital to study to become a doctor and medical mage under the guidance of the head doctor, Rin Nohara, Minato's third student. A few months ago, Makarov retired as guild master and gave the title to his son, naming Minato Drayar the fourth master of Fairy Tail. Minato once again took up a position as a wizard saint in X779, however, the elderly man is still present, serving as his son's advisor, and when the younger man must attend regular guild master meetings, he will temporarily regain control of the guild. The guild has remained a place of fun, but over the years, everyone has grown stronger, taller, and more feminine. The Strauss siblings are back at the guild today after another successful mission. Each of them has changed over the years. Mira, now 17, is 5 feet 2, 5 feet 4 and has a more feminine figure with D-cup breasts that are covered by a black halter top, exposing a lot of cleavage. She also wears a purple skirt with a white belt and her usual thigh-high heeled boots. Her white hair is still tied up in a ponytail, but now has 2 layers, the second of which falls down to her volupte. Her left thigh bears the white fairy tale stamp. Elfman Strauss has grown more than any other member of the younger generation. At 16 years old, he is now 6 feet 5 feet tall. His body is heavily muscled and tanned, his white hair has grown longer and is styled upward in long, wavy spikes, and his outfit now consists of a dark blue jacket with purplish blue inners that is held closed on the front by a row of large buttons, with similar buttons on the back of the sleeves. The jacket itself appears to be worn over a light red shirt, loose pants that match, held up by a simple belt, and traditional Japanese Geta sandals that are secured in place by bands that match the color of his jacket's inners. His black fairy tale stamp is situated on the left side of his neck. Lysana Strauss is 15 years old, her white hair has grown to the nape of her neck, and she now has a messier appearance. She wears a short, dark red dress with a white collar and bow, gold rings on her arms above her elbows with pale pink fabric flowing down from them, tall black socks and brown shoes, and her chest has grown to a high C cup. She also has a close relationship with Natsu Dragneel. They are best friends, but everyone can tell she feels more for him. Her red fairy tale stamp is on her left arm, just below her shoulder. Mira kicks open the doors and yells, "Mira is back, bitches." As the 3 siblings enter the guild, the strongest woman in Fairy Tail has incredible power that will make you shudder and tremble. Lysana simply shakes her head at her oldest sibling's antics and chastises her, saying, "Mira nay, you need to stop being so loud, and watch your language." The guild looks at the 17-year-old takeover mage blankly, more than accustomed to her behavior, though Mikao and Wakaba complain about her return. She smacks the counter to get the man's attention, and when the blonde turns to face her, she smiles and says, "S-class job to destroy Dark Guild completed, Master Minato." The older white head simply scoffs at her baby sister's remarks and marches up to the bar, where Minato is sitting on a stool drinking tea, while Lysana goes off to find Natsu and Elfman heads off with his head hung low, dejected that he still can't perform a full body takeover. "Now direct me to Naruto-kun so I can touch his well-defined body." The young woman's words and the expression on her face when she brings up his son's body make the 4th Fairy Tail master laugh. He sips his tea, smiles at her, and responds, "Good work as always, Mira-chan. You missed my son by 1 day yesterday. He departed on an S-class mission to eliminate a wyvern nest. I apologize, Mira-chan." In the meantime, Lysana is in Magnolia Park with Natsu and the flying blue cat they hatched 4 years ago. Happy is a blue cat that can speak, stands on only his hind legs, and uses a magic called Era, that allows him to sprout white angelic wings and fly. This makes the white-haired woman pout and stomp off, muttering about how unfair life is, and within a few minutes she's taking her frustrations out on her favorite punching bags, Wakaba and Mikao. After spending a few hours with her 2 favorite boys, Mira and Elfman interrupt them. The older girl approaches the 2 younger mages and says, "Come on, Lisa, we have another S-class job. It should be difficult because we're eliminating a beast known as the King of Monsters." This time the younger girl is taken aback and responds, "Another one already, Mirane." However, the oldest sibling shakes her head in response. "We just returned from a job, and I was hoping we could take a few days off and rest." With fire in his eyes, Natsu leaps to his feet and exclaims, "Hey, I have a brilliant idea. How about I accompany you? In addition to having a backup in case something goes wrong. It seems like the perfect job for me. But Mira chuckles at this and responds, yeah, you're back up. Not so, weakling. In my opinion, when the pink-haired boy tries to respond, the middle Strauss sibling puts his hand on his shoulder and says, we can handle this ourselves. I have my sister's back, so don't worry. Natsu, a man must defend his family with all of his might, and I cannot claim to be a man if I am unable to defend Nei-chan and Imoto. Natsu is surprised by the bigger teen's words, but still pouts at not getting to go. Lisana giggles at her best friend and secret crush's actions as the siblings walk off. The youngest whitehead turns towards the dragon slayer and says, hey Natsu. She catches his attention by raising her right arm in the air and displaying their guild's symbol with her thumb and pointer finger. He reciprocates the gesture as she turns to go with her siblings. In the meantime, Naruto, after finishing the wyvern extermination, the town that called for the job gave him their gratitude, the 20 million jewels reward, and permission to take one of the creature's horns. Since he wasn't in a rush to get home, he decided to just stroll and take in the scenery. The blonde can be found walking down a dirt road, heading in the general direction of Magnolia Town. He's humming a song and having a good time, carefree, when he feels a buzzing sensation inside his coat. He reaches into his right pocket, pulls out a round lacrima the size of his hand, and holds it up, pushing some magic into it. His father's face appears in the crystal as he does this, and he smiles at the man, asking, hey To-san, what's up? The fourth master responds, Naruto, where are you at the moment? The older man gives him a serious look, which makes him stop smiling, on the road about 15 miles from Shirotsume town. The S-class mage responds after surveying the area, I'm just taking my time returning to the guild after finishing the wyverns this morning. Why? I need you to do me a favor, son, the wizard saint replies. Nodding and sighing, the younger blonde is perplexed by this and asks, I might just be getting too cautious in my old age, but better safe than sorry. To-san, what's wrong? After giving his son a nod, Minato explains, a few hours ago, Mira-chan, Elfman-kun, and Lisana-chan returned from their S-class Dark Guild destruction mission. I'll do anything you ask me to do, but Mira became a little irate when she realized you weren't present. She immediately made the decision to accept another S-class mission, this time to eliminate the king of monsters, the beast, which had been lingering for some time. Naruto immediately reacts when the job that Mira took is mentioned because he is fully aware of it and has considered taking it himself in the near future. How could you let her take that job, To-san? You ought to be aware of how many mages the beast has slain. I know that, Naruto. The older blonde says, frowning at his only son. I trust Mira-chan to take care of it, which is why I've gotten in touch with you. However, I have a hunch that something might go wrong, so I want you to go to Akane Resort and keep an eye out. If something does go wrong, you should step in. Otherwise, avoid attention and let Mira-chan and her siblings handle it. The blonde, who would hardly make it in time to prevent a tragedy, nods his head as he cuts off the transmission, puts the lacrima back in his coat pocket, and turns toward Akane Resort, calling forth wind magic beneath his feet and shooting off into the sky. The Strauss siblings are back after arriving at their destination. The three white-haired teenagers went straight to the mayor to inform him that they would take care of the beast. The mayor thanked them and gave them the location of the monster, but he cautioned them not to worry because he didn't want to see any more young mages killed. Mira assured him that the demon always defeats the beast in the hierarchy of monsters. When the beast eventually locates them, they discover that it is enormous, standing at least 12 feet tall, heavily muscled, covered in thick red fur along the arms and back, with green skin at the neck and abdominal muscles, pointed ears, sharp elongated canines, spikes on his shoulders, horns on his head, and large hooves for feet. The three set out into the forest at the base of the mountain where the monster makes its home and start looking for it. The king of monsters exclaims loudly, "Roarrrrrrrr." Before moving to attack the three siblings, all of them scatter, with Lisana calling out, Animal Soul. Wings. Elfman shouts, Beast Soul. Black Bull. Animaru Soru. Yuingdusu. As her arms transform into huge green wings with pink feathers and she soars through the air. Basuto Soru. Kokugayu. Transforming his right arm up to the shoulder into the black arm of an unidentified monster, he rushes the beast and fights it fist for fist as it tries to attack Mira. As her younger brother temporarily restrains the beast, Mira shouts to her sister, Lisana, stay back and let me and Elfman handle the fighting. While gazing up at the sky, return to town and inform the mayor that it may take a little longer than anticipated. The younger white-haired girl nods her head and responds, Okay Mira Nei-chan, Ni-chan, please stay safe, and heads back towards the village with Lisana gone. Mira smirks menacingly and lets loose her magic as she sees Elfman starting to lose ground. as her form starts to change and she exclaims, Satan Soul. A huge purple magic circle appears beneath her. Enveloping her in purple light, her hair is now wilder and curlier, protruding straight upwards, and she now has a zigzag-like marking over her right eye and a similar one over her right breast. Her body is covered in flat, square-shaped scale-like parts that eventually vanish, revealing her new look. She is wearing a dark, skimpy one-piece suit that shows off her arms and legs and is open on the front and back, exposing most of her belly, wide cleavage, and upper back. The lighter-colored edges of the fabric take on spiky shapes, and a cravat tie is used to tie her similarly spiky collar around her neck. Her feet are covered by matching high-heeled thigh-high boots, which are adorned with lighter motifs on the upper parts that resemble jagged blades pointing downward on the front of her legs, and on the lower parts that correspond to her ankles and feet. Her shoulders are tied in a few thin belts that protrude from her one-piece suit.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.